Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order of the School Board of Indian River County. It's May 25th, 2021, and it is 6 o'clock. I would like to invite Mr. Richard Meyer, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Innovation, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Before the first formal part of the meeting, which is the adoption of the orders of the day, I'd just like to say a few words to everyone who's here. Everybody's got different points of view on many of these issues. The only thing that we ask, is that we be civil, that we treat people who may differ from one another and their points of view with respect. Doesn't mean you have to agree with them. Some of these meetings, last meeting, unfortunately, it had to be recessed for a period of time. It's really unfair in a way. That meeting early on was to honor a group of academic all-stars from the two high schools. And unfortunately, their evening was interrupted because we had to recess before we were able to bring them and their families up here to recognize their many achievements. And if you were here or watched, it's why we all care about schools. It's why we care about these young people. And it was an outstanding group of young people and their varied accomplishments. So tonight, I ask that you be respectful of different people's point of view. No hooting and hollering, please. I don't want to have to recess a meeting. I certainly don't want to have someone have to be asked to leave. I understand that people are passionate, they even get emotional, but, we're not always going to agree. We don't always agree with one another, but we're here for one reason, and that's, as Dr. Moore likes to say of all of us, best for kids. That's why we're here. So with that note, I would like to ask if, as far as the consent agenda is concerned, are there any items?
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Berenborg.
Can we move consent agenda item 5B, face covering requirements, to action, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Are there any other items?
Yes.
Mrs. Rosario.
I would like to move 9B. That's the reorganization, and 10A, the Zonar Z-Pass.
All right. Any other items? May I have a motion to approve the orders of the day?
So moved.
I'll second.
Dr. Schiff and Mrs. Berenborg. Any further comments or suggestions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. At this point in time, I would like to turn the program over to Dr. Moore for a series of presentations and recognitions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome you and Doc Jones to the podium, or to the dais for the first time. So it is nice to be back and be live. We do have a number of brief presentations, and for that I'll turn it over to our Public Information Officer, Ms. Maddox.
Hello, good evening, everyone. It's nice to see everyone back in their seats. I think this might be Dr. Moore's second time up there.
5.
Oh, his fifth, okay. So tonight we have a video for you that we taped last week, grad walks. If you know what they are, if you work at a school, you probably have seen some of the seniors come back to your school. But every year we have a couple of designated days where the high school seniors come back to their elementary schools and they walk through the halls and the students cheer them on and have signs for them, and we captured it all in a video.
Yeah, coming back to campus today was really special. Seeing all your old teachers and seeing the students. It brings back a lot of memories. Seeing the field where we played kickball, or the hard court where we played basketball, and seeing the classrooms where we made so many memories and met so many friends. It was a special moment.
It was amazing coming back, just seeing everything, seeing all. Well, like nothing's really changed, but like it is different coming back. Like it seems a lot smaller.
It's nice knowing that I have people that I've known since kindergarten, first grade that are still supporting me, and that everyone has been waiting for this day to come, and now it's finally here.
My favorite part about today was hearing everybody's favorite memory of Rosewood, because it brought back a lot of memories for me and how much I really enjoyed this school.
I mean, it was definitely very joyful, because it's great seeing little kids cheer you on and look up to you and how we're their role models right now. And it was just a great feeling walking down the halls and having them all cheer for us with the signs and everything.
My advice I would give them is to just keep working hard at what they're doing now, because it will pay off. Being here at an IB school, it'll pay off in the future for them.
I would probably tell students just to keep at it. I mean, it is high school, but to not take it for granted, keep at it. And it's people say always it goes by really quickly, but it really does. And it's just, I really had a good time.
It was great coming back to campus today with Preston, my twin brother. Rosewood kind of fostered our competitive spirit at recess and PE, running track together with Coach. That was really where we started competing, loving to compete with each other. And then we also switched classes for the first time in 5th grade. And Miss Flana and Miss Carroll kind of fostered that. It was great. Miss Flana just recently passed away, but she means so much to both of us. And just the bond we have with each other was really fostered because of Rosewood.
It's funny to hear them say that everything looks so much smaller, because they have no idea how much bigger everything is about to get for them as graduates. Our next presentation, Mr. Heiser, if you would please bring the students in. We have our State Science Fair recognition. And I would like to ask, once we get the students in, Mr. Doug Herron. He's the Executive Director of the Education Foundation of Indian River County. And Mr. Herron and Mr. Heiser will be joining together to recognize some of these geniuses that we have here lining up.
Mr. Barefoot, why don't you come up front?
Good afternoon. I'm excited to be with you this afternoon in what is sure to be the most enjoyable part of the school board meeting tonight, I'm sure. At least it's something we can all agree on. We're recognizing students for hard work. So my name is Doug Herron, and I'm the Executive Director at the Education Foundation of Indian River County. And we're here tonight to recognize those students in Indian River County schools that received a state bid for the science fair this year. Now, science fair under any circumstances is a tedious work. Research is tedious. Anyone that's been to school can tell you that. And under ordinary circumstances, it's difficult. But under extraordinary circumstances like these students face this year, it's just amazing. So they participated in a virtual fair at the regional level, which is the district, and then they participated in a state science fair that was held virtually as well. So as the students are passing by, I would like to congratulate them for their hard work, for their accomplishments, and for making it to the State Science Fair this year. All right, as we call your name, you can come up to receive your plaque. Lily Strauss. May Bao He. Ivy Yang. Oscar Lindenthal. Emma Finney. Adriana Massaroni Santella. Sasha Hepler. Kaylee Webster. Lincoln Dykes. Avie Johnson. Hunter Gregory Cook. Louis St. Petery. Max Plotkin. Sawyer Pichelle. Elijah Blackwell. Sky Clayton. Connor Powell. Sienna Malone. Noah Hernandez. And Enzo Crisafulli. Congratulations to our State Fair bid winners for 2021.
Stay right where you are, and board members, let's try this. Why don't we stand up, and I think that'll work out perfectly. And parents, don't worry, we'll hold them there for pictures.
Kristen, you will be on the side or back in the side?
Well, we can only get
We're out
from
in
corner
the-
to corner, so if you guys can kind of scrunch in a little bit. Ready, 1, 2, and 3. Dr. Ship, we can take one step to the left of you.
I have that thing where you can't.
There you go. All right, ready, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now hold for your parents for a second. All right, parents, have at it. And before you leave, I'd also like to recognize the science teachers. If you're a science teacher, would you raise your hand, please? Thank you so much. Okay, students, do you have, did I just take over before you were done? Okay.
Time for your parents to take you out to dinner.
Thank you very much. All right, you all can exit out that door. Thank you. One more round of applause.
Congratulations. Good job. driving in a car with me, you have to point. 'cause
Just give everyone a moment to leave the
we all have
room.
our disabilities. That one's mine. Yeah, no, it's. No, but I get it, I can't. I get it. When I'm sure. There's actually a name for it. I used to call it, let's write dyslexia, but there's actually a name. It's like a thing.
Mr. Sturgeon, why don't you join me over here?
No, it is. You got a point if you want to go. I can get there, I just have to think.
And
not.
Mrs. Kennedy? I'm not going to steal your thunder because I know you do a better job at presenting this project than I will, but we learned about a very cool project that the IB students at Sebastian River High School were doing. Had a couple people reach out and say, you have got to recognize these students at a board meeting. And the project was, the Laura Riding Jackson Foundation runs an oral history program that trains students to interview all sorts of different local people, like pioneers of Gifford, veterans, and women of the C-suite. In late 2020, our beloved Sebastian River High School educator, Billy Wilson, passed away. When Mr. Wilson died, Mia Martinelli from the IB program, she asked if she could focus the efforts of their oral history work on his legacy. So I will let you tell a little bit more about this now, or Mia?
Hi there, I'm Louise Kennedy, the Executive Director of the Laura Riding Jackson Foundation. And this program started out in a much more general way, but when you have a student like Mia Martinelli in your midst who really gets people moving, and they come to you and make a proposal in order to honor a beloved educator, you start to shift your gears. So that's what we did, and we trained and worked with students and ultimately pulled together their oral reflections with the people they interviewed who wanted to honor Mr. Wilson, and we created as a foundation a book of their reflections, which we're sharing with members of the board this evening. Thank you for taking the time and for honoring the student initiative. And I think the best person to really talk about the program is actually Mia Martinelli and Andreas Ruiz, her other student leader. So I'll welcome them to the podium.
I just wanted to say thank you for recognizing it. I really appreciate that. So basically, we started this because Mr. Wilson had passed, and I think a lot of the IB program students, were talking, and we felt like we were really the last group of students that had him as an administrator and had a bond with him, or even some of the students that knew him a little bit less, they wanted to learn more. And I think that this, the oral history project was a great way for other students to learn more about him. And I wanted to thank Ms. Kennedy and Mr. Sturgeon and Andres, because it really wouldn't have happened without them. And we pulled 15 of my peers and 27 staff to all help with these reflections. And so it's really an entire community project, and we're really proud of that. And the last thing that I wanted to say was that I've learned a lot doing this project, a lot about the power of positivity, power of a smile, and building relationships. Mr. Wilson was pretty great at that, and that's why there's such, that's why it's such a great loss for our community. I encourage you, I encourage you to read it, and I just think that if our community adopts, those ideas, then it'll just make Sebastian, the district, a better place.
So myself, I'm not really a local of Sebastian. I moved here 4 years ago, so I don't know too much about the ins and outs, but one thing that doing this project and why I thank Mia Martinelli for helping me work on is I sort of understood this community fabric within our school district and Indian River County as a whole. I saw the biggest impacts in the people that Mr. Wilson worked with, and I got exposed to a lot of different stories, and I just think, as Mia said, just working towards what his aspirations were of just loving people and making people feel welcome. I think it's very important that we all have this opportunity to do these reflections and put it in a book so that we can look back, and I'd like to say thank you.
We have copies for each of you. Is it okay for us to distribute some of the copies to you all? Okay.
Absolutely.
While we're doing this, some of you, if you were here last week, saw Mia, one of the academic all-stars, and we saw her at the graduation last Friday night. She was the salutarian, of her class, and she's headed for the Coast Guard Academy this fall. If you'd like to join us up here every week, Mia, we could probably use some help and guidance.
Mr. Barefoot?
Absolutely, yes, we're
Can
not.
I add to
Sure.
that?
And what are your plans for after high school? Are you a senior?
Yes, ma'am.
What are your plans?
The Naval Academy.
Wow, okay, and we have one going to the Naval Academy.
Oh, we got a naval academy.
Wow.
There's not
Nothing
much of
special.
a rivalry, is there, between the Coast Guard and the Navy? They're complementary. Dr. Schiff, you wanted to say something?
I want to acknowledge you both. Andres, I haven't seen you as quite as many events. Mia, I'm pretty convinced there isn't anything you don't do.
Exactly.
Because I've now been to scholarship events, I've been to awards events, I've been to graduation, like, you're everywhere. Are your parents here?
My mom's there.
I don't know if you go by Martinelli. Mrs. Martinelli, can I tell you what an extraordinary daughter you've raised? Can I tell you how impressed I am? And I don't mean to take away from anybody else's achievements here by any means, but I want to acknowledge not just Mia, but you, because I know what it takes to be a parent. I know what it takes. I know how hard it is. I know about teenagers. So I want to tell you what an extraordinary job you've done, how proud this district is. I'm sorry if I'm embarrassing you. But you are both extraordinary students, and I am proud to sit on the board of a district that produces students like you both. So thank you for that.
Mrs. Martinelli is one of our science teachers.
Should have known that.
So if any of you knew Billy, you know that this is a fraction of the book that it could be if everyone who knew him interviewed him. And I can't wait to look through it. I can't wait. Such a great project. So we have some certificates tonight for Mia Martinelli for your leadership in the oral history project honoring the legacy of Mr. Billy Wilson III under the direction of the Laura Writing Foundation. And Andres, we have the same award for you. Thank you very much for your work in the oral history project, obviously honoring the legacy of Mr. Billy Wilson under the direction of the Laura Writing Foundation. Jasmine Cummings was also a student who worked on this, but she could not be with us tonight. And that's Mr. Cummings' daughter. Is Mr. Cummings here? No. Okay. And Mr. Sturgeon, we have a certificate for you too. Because you have done so many wonderful things with our students at Sebastian River High School this year, and just thank you so much for your leadership.
And before,
Let's get a picture. You guys want to
if you want to take some pictures before you go anywhere, Dr. Jones, who's an alumna of Sebastian River High School and many other schools in the district over the years, would like to also.
Just a special thank you, and to Dr. Schiff, you should see all the other Martinellis too that went through Sebastian River High School. but I'm so proud of the students, and thank you to the Laura Riding Jackson Foundation. We have a couple board members here, Dr. Jacobs and Susan Lovelace. Thank you for this oral history. It is so very, very important for our community. And to those that thought about Mr. Wilson, Mr. Sturgeon knows a little bit too here, because he's been involved with the high school in many different areas before he was with IB. This is, he's a legend, and I thank you so very much for doing this. Thank you.
I know you guys are completely out of wall space for all your certificates.
Good to see you.
Dr. Moore, that's all for presentations tonight.
Mr. Barefoot, that's all for the presentations tonight.
Okay, are we going to move the?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Excuse me.
While
I'm
we're
already
repositioning the podium, next on the agenda is citizen input. There are 25 requests to speak. And again, I apologize ahead of time if I mispronounce someone's name. But I can tell from the first few, the writing is really good. Couple of guidelines that I read every meeting. Each statement made by a member of the public shall be limited to 3 minutes duration. Persons will be recognized in the order in which the requests were received. Persons may speak for up to 3 minutes at the beginning of a business meeting during citizens' input, as indicated on the order of business, and for up to 3 minutes to each agenda item during the action agenda and each board member discussion item, as indicated on the order of business. Persons may only speak once, however, about any given item. The time period may be extended by the presiding officer, and only the individual submitting a speaker's form is allowed to address the board. Time may not be yielded to other speakers. And Mrs. Diagresta is the parliamentarian, and she's the keeper of the time. So the first speaker this evening is Susan Baldwin.
Good evening. My name is Susan Baldwin. I live in South County, Indian River. My husband and I take a daily walk on 20th Avenue from about 14th Street Southwest to Oslo Middle School, at which point we turn around and go home. In this stretch, it's about a mile, on any given day, I can count 6 to 10 used, dirty face masks, which are discarded on the sidewalk, and they're both the disposable ones and cloth. And this is also the route the kids take back and forth to school. Is it a coincidence? I don't think so. This is just one route from one of the 20-plus schools here in Indian River County. Whatever people think masks do or do not do, you can say for certain that they pollute. Here's some numbers and facts from National Geographic and Discover. 125 billion face masks are used per month worldwide. They estimate that as many as 1.6 billion could have entered the oceans last year, and that adds up to that could add up to over 6,000 tons of garbage. They're made from plastics. They could be in the ocean as long as 500 years before they fully break down, and the microplastics they break down into are basically have eternal life. These masks are a huge threat to the health of marine animals. Some species are mistaking the masks for jellyfish and eating them or getting tangled up into the elastic bands. Once again, I always have to think sometimes the cure is worse than the disease. And if you think these masks are not making their way into the ditches during heavy rains and then out to the living river lagoon, we might want to think again. Now, we all care about our lagoon and about a beautiful environment we have here in Indian River County, and I'm sure the board does too. So let us put our caring into action to cut down the pollution of our waterways and the trash in our streets by making the wearing of masks by our kids optional. It may not solve the problem, but it is a step forward. Do it for the kids and do it for the manatees. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baldwin. Next speaker is Julie Kay. Ms. Kay, right front and center, you get a front row seat.
Hi, my name's Julie Kay. I'm a school bus driver for Indian River County. I am here because we're going to be starting our contract talks. And would just like you to know, what I have personally been through as a bus driver this year. I can't speak for everyone. When COVID hit, I felt really bad for the children and the parents. They're the ones that got hit the worst. When we were able to come back to school, I jumped at it, did not hesitate to come back. We started with just a trickle, and now our buses are completely full. We don't have enough bus drivers. We do double runs, disinfect our buses 4 to 5 times a day, and it's just been really trying. We try to console the kids. They get upset a lot easier than they used to. Behavior has been an issue. But I just wanted to let you know that it has been trying for us. Also, cost of living. Everything is going up. Groceries are going up. Lumber has gone up. And we hopefully can maybe come to an agreement before the beginning of the next year. That's why I'm here. So just wanted you to listen, and hopefully you'll take that, when we meet, and hopefully we can come to an agreement before the beginning of the year. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Kay. Next speaker, Chris Allen.
Hi, my name is Chris Allen, and I am one of the founding members of We the People Indian River County and a moderator for Moms for Liberty Indian River, Florida. One of you mentioned last meeting the Florida Citizens Alliance letter to Governor DeSantis and Corcoran about critical race theory, and I do want to mention that it was this county they were speaking of, and We the People Indian River County was a supporting organization to it. We've been told by many people, I thought next year was going to be optional masking. We've been told that our fight is almost finished and that we don't need to attend meetings anymore, but I disagree. Without a constant voice asking and telling you to end the mask mandate, you wouldn't know how important this issue is to parents. Though our group attendance varies, know that this is an issue that has awakened the sleeping giant. Know that we will keep showing up whenever issues regarding our children arises. So, as an Indian River County resident and parent whose child attends public school, I ask you, number one, make masking optional as soon as possible, as I believe it's harmful to my child. And number two, stop the purchase of the HMH curriculum that in the teacher's supplemental material asks students to find works by authors of different races. My child does not in any way ask for the race of an author before reading a book. The same curriculum also wants third graders to discuss race relations. My child knows we're all different, but made in God's image. It is not the school's job to socially engineer my child away from his biblical foundation. We are all one race, and that's the human race. What happened to judging people by the content of their character instead of the color of their skin? I suggest you use the current curriculum one more year to further evaluate better ones to purchase. COVID has disrupted our lives so much that I would rather my child use Common Core reading than one that makes him concentrate on race and also a curriculum that supports a Marxist organization. And since I have extra time, may I suggest that Mara Schiff and Peggy Jones not sit in the dais because you were the ones that voted against it last meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Next speaker is Angela Love.
everyone. My name is Angela Love. I am here, I live here in Vero, and I have 2 daughters that are in the public school system. Go Osceola. And thank you all for all of your service that you do here in Indian River County. I'm here to speak up in favor of educating students about reality and ignoring racism and pretending that it doesn't exist is not the way to best serve our children. I know that Indian River has fought the desegregation order previously. We've wasted almost $1 million doing so. And it's been, what has it been, 50 some years? And it's embarrassing, it's shameful. It's embarrassing when I have to tell somebody that our county has not complied. And I say do everything we can to comply immediately, to comply right now. I didn't bring it up here, but there was a quote from Supreme Court Justice Kennedy that said it is a moral and ethical obligation to integrate our schools, and that all children receive a great education and be able to get the tools that they need for our society. And denying this is not improving our county. It's not making this a better place to live. It's not drawing in people that we want to draw in. And so I'm in favor of doing what we need to do to make sure this is an equitable place. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Love. Jennifer Pippin.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Pippin. I am the chairman for Moms for Liberty of Indian River, Florida, and one of the admins for We the People of Indian River County. First off, I wanted to say thank you to a couple of people, this being the last school board meeting of the year. To Mr. Eric Seymour, who has answered almost any parent's question or troubles this year that I've sent to with masking, quarantining, anything. Thank you very much, Mr. Eric Seymour. Scott Bass, same thing. Anything with any issues I was able to send to him. Kristen Maddox and Sarah Milliman for all the public records requests that we did as an organization to get the facts and stats correct when we addressed the board. As far as the masking, you guys voted on it last time. 3 of you voted against it. 2 of you voted for it. Thank you, Mrs. Rosario, and thank you, Mrs. Berenborg, for that. I just want to give you the most accurate stats to date. Out of 67 counties in Florida, 39 counties currently have optional masking in their schools. 22 of them have already made a commitment to either summer or fall. And Indian River is one of 6 counties in the state of Florida that has not made a commitment. Again, the plan to make a plan, Dr. Moore mentioned wanting to be first, to be at the top. Mr. Barefoot saying you want to be the best. 1 out of 6 counties that has not made a plan to make a plan to get these masks off the children. It's wrong, and it needs to stop. And I know we have another vote brought. Please give the children an option to mask. If they want to mask, double mask, staff, administrators, that is absolutely their right, but give them the option to do so or not, please. Last meeting, there was a father, a taxpayer. He was doxxed from this very meeting in a public place, in a public meeting, and he wasn't allowed to sit in an empty seat when 2 school board members, it's on the YouTube video, allowed him to take their seat. He was escorted out. I'm not even going to give the validity to the newspaper that gave a completely wrong article on him and doxed him from his job. If taxpayers and parents cannot come to your meeting without being able to speak publicly and possibly lose their jobs, that's wrong, and that's on you, and that's unacceptable. So anybody should be able to come in here and make a public comment and not worry about if they're going to have their job the next day. That's wrong, and that's on you. That should be in one of your policies, that parents, community members are not to be doxxed in coming to your meetings. And I wanted to remind you also, I'm wrapping up, the First Amendment, we have the right to speak. We have the right to speak on public sidewalks, in front of any building, any home. Those are public places. We as taxpayers and parents pay for those. So it's not a threat to your security. We're not coming after you if we want to do our First Amendment rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pippin. Next speaker, John Karapi.
Good afternoon. So, one thing we could all agree on is that what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, correct? I mean, anybody in here can agree on that, especially this past year, right? Well, every morning when I wake up, I say to myself, I am one with God, I am sovereign, and I'm a free being. And being free is our birthright in this country. What's happening in this community is not only a movement, but it's an awakening. It's a conscious awakening of what's happening and what is happening on this board. And what happened last time, I'm speechless, because as a taxpayer and as a parent in this community, I should be able to have a seat in this room, and you guys know that. When I was asked to leave the building, two of the board members obviously offered their seat, Jackie and Terry, and I thank you for that. And that's obviously your intentions. And the conscious awakening that's happening in this community is because of that, because your conscious intentions show us, not tell us. All you've been doing is telling us. Then I come in here and say something, say, do this, do that, and I get my name in the newspaper, okay? Now, intentions for everyone on this board also goes to Mr. Barefoot as well. Mr. Barefoot, you had the power to let me sit in that chair, and you didn't do it. You asked authorities to make me leave. Your intentions to call the newspaper and have an article written about me that is completely false shows you where your alliance is. Your alliance is with the fake news media in this town in 32963. And 32963 is an enemy of the people, and it's not good, and it always has been. And you align to that. And just because of that, this is what happens. The next day, John Karapi gets, effective immediately, you are suspended with pay until further notice as they continue to investigate allegations that may impact my employment. So your intentions to cancel out a parent in this community is pretty dark and evil, sir, and it shouldn't happen. And it shouldn't happen to somebody that's been in this town for 35 years, that's had more than one job, Mara. I've had more than one job in this town. I listened to the workshop today, and you know, I've been in this community for 35 years, and I've done a lot of things in this community that nobody seems to remember. And that's the past. But I should be able to speak here and not be docked because of my job and where I work. It doesn't make any sense. So if you want to align with the darkness and be dark in this community, the light has been shined on you right now. People know about you and what you're about, and that's not fair and it's not right. And now I have to figure out what I'm going to do for the next whenever, because now I have plenty of time on my hands. So I don't know what I should do. You know, somebody speaks out, and then I have to have my name in the paper saying that I'm going to incite an insurrection. Peggy said that at the workshop today. That inciting an insurrection. You had a lot to say, Peggy, at the workshop.
Oh, no, I didn't say that.
Yes, you did.
I did not say insurrection.
Yes, you did. You had a lot to say. You were quiet last meeting, but you had a lot to say, and it's unfortunate. And now I don't have a job now. So all right, Mr.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Esperanza Ramey.
Good evening to you all. Truth and freedom are words that echo in my heart as I stand here before you today. As a grandmother of 3 elementary school-age children in IRC elementary schools, I am very concerned with what's going on. For this school year, Our children have been held hostage of their freedom to be children. They all had to learn to live with many limitations. You are all aware of them. For the past year, you have parents sharing their concerns about masks, and at times they have pleaded with you you all to have masks removed. In the long run, these masks are causing more health issues than the virus attacking the health of our children. Parents' voices, time and time again, have been silenced. Why? 61 counties in Florida have lifted their mandates, whether making masks optional or just taking them all off. Why not Indian River County? Give our children back their freedom. You have no right to take that away. In regards to the critical race theory curriculum, to my understanding, this ideology was started by 3 Harvard theorists. Critical race theory was born out of a critical theory, which is considered a Marxist-inspired movement in social and political philosophy that maintains that one of the primary goals of philosophy is to understand and to help overcome the social structures through which people are dominated and oppressed. It sounds good on paper, right? But do you know that the basis of Marxism is served as a theoretical base for communism? Is this the theory or ideology that you want to instill in our children? Do you think by modifying current assignments, parents will accept this? Dr. Moore stated also in the interview in the Vero News that he's not going to let any political agenda get beyond the schoolhouse doors of Indian River County. Well, I must say, Dr. Moore, from where I'm standing, you're not a watchful doorkeeper. If you and the board go through with this theory, you will have opened the floodgates of an indoctrination which their main goal is to examine the difference of oppression and then name and shame the so-called oppressors who are judged by the color of their skin. But we as parents and grandparents are not going to let our children drown in your willingness to conform to this theory. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ramey. The next speaker is Angela Bowling.
Hi, everybody. It's hard to hear sometimes the names being called off, but anyway. I would first recognize that it has been 1 year since the murder of George Floyd, an event that greatly impacted my perspectives and purposes in life. I hope that the movement stirred by his death will not lose strength as time passes. Thank you for requiring masks over the course of this pandemic, choosing to listen to scientific experts, including the CDC. You recognize that the schools are not environmental bubbles. It's possible for a student to contract COVID and, while asymptomatic, expose family members who then could unknowingly carry it into nursing homes where they work, exposing the residents there, which is, of course, how many of the residents caught COVID. I've lived here since 1984, and all 4 of my children, including the 3 white ones, attended and graduated from our public schools. I also interact regularly with teens of all races in my various volunteer roles, and my former foster children, both black and white, attended Indian River County schools. Thank you for being willing to address our court-ordered desegregation requirements. I support the work being done by Mr. Barefoot, our board, and Dr. Moore that you're doing in cooperation with the NAACP and the Equity Committee. While I wish we could have hired a Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, I understand the decision to not make one person carry the weight and brunt of that responsibility. After listening to many of the comments from the last school board meeting, I understand there's more work needed for racial equity than I realized. Those individuals who object, for instance, to feeling discomfort at the term white privilege may not understand the racism that is experienced by people of color in our community, our schools, and nationwide. My desire is that our curricula teach students a broad view of American history. We cannot hide from the many wrongs of our past if we want to see true liberty and justice for all. That is an ideal we still are working to achieve. The discussions and learning will be difficult and uncomfortable. Growth and understanding require us to recognize that we are doing wrong so it can be corrected. This is the same at a personal level as it is at a school system level. We can't discover the errors if we are afraid to investigate. And rather than objecting to CRT, which is not clearly defined, other citizens would be better understood if they named specific topics that they think should not be allowed in the schools. The progress of the past was won in spite of loud objections from many who wanted to maintain the status quo. Please don't become discouraged by the weight of the battle and the many naysayers. I'm hoping there is some way that I can help in this ongoing process as I continue to learn with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowling. I remind you, I understand that each of the speakers touches an emotional chord with each of you, so now we're about even. We're the people that clap for all the speakers, so if you don't mind. The next speaker is Cindy Gibbs.
Hi. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm Cindy Gibbs. I live in Sebastian. I have a master's in education, and I taught elementary school in this school district for 15 years at 3 different schools. I'm no longer a school teacher, but I am a parent of a recent Storm Grove graduate and a recent Pelican Island graduate. Public school teachers pride themselves on what is sort of a mantra. We teach them all. They come to us. We teach them no matter who they are. When students come into the classroom, we create relationships, we build trust. Together, everyone learns, the teachers and the students. No K-12 school in this state is teaching CRT. No one is being forced to feel guilty about slavery or about women not having the vote until the 1920s or about gay marriage being illegal in all 50 states until 2015. No one is forcing anyone to feel guilty that some people have physical disabilities or mental illness. Reasonable people just want the school curricula to look like the kids and the teachers who are in the rooms learning and teaching, and to honor the truth. Columbus didn't discover America, Washington owned slaves, and we can better do for all of us if we talk about what and why and how. Our kids in elementary school and all grades are already talking the talk. They know about different genders. They know that different races look different from one another. They know who learns differently. They know who has nicer clothes and lives in a bigger house or lives on the beach or doesn't. They know. We need to catch up. We need to have the conversations with them that they're already having. I know a lot of parents are uncomfortable with their children having ideas that they have not given to them, but let's be honest. I don't believe every single thing my parents told me, and I'm sure you don't either. It's okay for kids to be able to have conversations at school with their peers and other trusted adults in their community that they may not feel safe having at home, and there's good reason why they may not feel safe. As a former public school teacher, it was the law for me to report to the state if I felt anyone was in danger or unsafe in their own home, and I made that phone call many more times than I'd like to talk about. And there's a reason why we have to make those phone calls, because not every home is safe. And some of those reasons are because of what too many people in this community are worried about. I am a little disappointed that we haven't decided to have a whole group of people talking about equity and equality, but we really do need to know, and I'm more than willing to assist, how we're going to come to an agreement in this community so that we can start to heal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbs. The next speaker is Nate Wilkerson.
Good evening. One of the founding principles of critical race theory, CRT, is that racism is normal, ordinary, and not aberrational. It promotes and teaches a belief that America and our systems are inherently, irredeemably racist and must be destroyed and remade. Professor Derek Bell, one of the originators of American critical race theory, once said, "Racism cannot be ended within the current system. The current system is actually both a byproduct of and a continuing excuse for racism. Minority opinions on the system are more relevant than white opinions, since whites have long enjoyed control of the system and have an interest in maintaining it." CRT, or any teaching based from it, diagnoses the problems, issues, and inequalities in our society as nothing more than racism. But its prescribed solution is to pour more racism into it, to flip the script and oppress the oppressors. Children and students of color or any other minority groups are taught to believe that they are oppressed simply because of the color of their skin or because of the minority group that they belong to. Children and students that belong to the majority group, namely white children and students, are taught to believe that they are racist and must repent of their sins. They're taught to believe that these things, regardless of their personal experiences, to the contrary. Boiled down, critical race theory is the very thing that it decries, a systemic, perpetuated expression of racism and bigotry. It teaches children and students to look at themselves and others only in terms of their group identity and to hate their perceived oppressors if they're part of a minority group, or to hate themselves if they're a part of the majority. We need curriculum that promotes the God-given intrinsic value of each person as a human being, not as a member of a racial group or any other kind of group for that matter. Curriculum that unites and not divides. Curriculum that teaches children personal responsibility and not racial victimhood and racial oppression. Now more than ever, we need to work on coming together, finding common ground, loving our neighbor. Critical race theory seeks to divide and uses hate to drive the wedge. As Dr. King so famously said, hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. His ultimate example of love and unity was Jesus Christ. Ephesians 2:14-18 says, "For Jesus Christ is our peace, who has made the two groups one and destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility, by setting aside in his flesh the law with its commands and regulations. His purpose was to create in himself one new humanity out of the two, thus making peace, and in one body to reconcile both of them to God through the cross, by which he put to death their hostility. He came and preached peace to you who are far away and peace to those who are near. For through him we both have access to the Father by one Spirit." Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson. And the next speaker is Don Wilkerson.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Wilkerson. We are not here just to talk to you. We are here to petition and request action based off of grievances. Mr. Barefoot, it was very disrespectful for you to say today at the superintendent's workshop that you already have your mind made up how you are going to vote and that they're wasting their time in keeping yapping about something. It seems as though you have very little regard for the people that you're supposed to represent and those who take time out of their schedules to come and speak. So here's my yapping. Our governor, Ron DeSantis, said on May 21st that kids should not be having to wear these masks in schools. That's what the evidence has told us. Clearly, from an emotional, physical, psychological perspective, that's obviously a no-brainer. Let our kids finish out the school year on a positive note. Allow teachers, parents, and staff the right of optional masking. At our last school board meeting, there was a young guy who gave his opinion concerning critical race theory. He said, "What you are going to hear about CRT is false talking points designed to undermine any type of discussion on racism in our country." It sounds like he's open to discussion about this. So I visited his Facebook page and I replied to his post with the following. "Hi, I was at the meeting and I heard you speak. I am so sorry to hear that you received boos for some, for some attending. I did not boo you, and I know that you have every right as a member of our community to come and speak and to be heard. I am with Moms for Liberty. We are a group of parents, grandparents, and community members who know that we are the best advocates for our children, whether it's concerning medical freedom, curriculum at local schools, or an overreach of public servants. And we are dedicated to unifying, educating, and empowering parents to defend their parental rights at all levels of government. As a parent who loves my children dearly and wants them to succeed, especially in loving others, I do know what is best for my child when it comes to their education. We are not trying to decide every little thing in the curriculum, as you mentioned. We do, however, oppose CRT. We do not believe it should be in the curriculum, and I personally do not agree with your thoughts on it. I do not believe that this ideology can or will bring healing and unity in our community. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak about this on your page. Maybe we can all sit down and chat about this further. I was really hoping that he would take me up on this and we can have an open dialogue, because I believe that's what we need. But he blocked me from his page. That makes it hard to have a conversation, wouldn't you say? So I decided that I would try to join a group that he is a part of, and it's called Parents for Equity. It turns out that they are not so inclusive, and they would not let me join. How are we to have an open discussion when blocked from doing so from the people who cry that they want discussions on racism? I'm almost finished. Critical race theory is nothing more than an ideology posing as history, and the two should not be confused. I appreciate you saying that we are not going to be embracing CRT, but your choices of curriculum are suspect. And if you are teaching our teachers to see our children only as colors, we do have a problem. We are all one race, and that's the human race. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wilkinson. Next speaker is Amy Gallo.
Hi, I'm Amy Gallo. I haven't prepared anything. My son graduated in 2018, so thank God I don't have a kid in the school right now, because you guys have a really tough job, and I know there's a lot of passionate parents and grandparents and people in the community. But I just wanted to come today because I read an article that you guys didn't get any support for hiring an equity director or diversity director, and I want to say I support that concept. I support the idea. Equality is very important. I can't really speak about education. I'm not an educator. I work in the sustainability industry. I work in green building. And literally every day, that's what we talk about, is social equality in sustainability, in green building, in our investments. It's the biggest thing right now. If you want to look up what's called ESG, it's environmental, sustainability, and governance, or social justice and governance. And those are the three things that the whole world is talking about right now. It's really important that all of our corporations, our schools, everybody starts talking about what we can do as, what we can do for the environment, what we can do for sustainable justice, and what you all do in your governance roles. Super important. And it's what the whole country is really talking about right now. It's like a hot, hot topic. So you guys are on the right topic, you're on the right path. I just want you to keep going, stay ahead of the curve, do what you can for our students. I can tell you as a gay woman married to an immigrant with a mixed race son, it's not easy in this county. I walk into a door and I get all the attention that I need. They get treated differently. I see it all the time. So it's real. People are not colorblind. We're not post-racial. It's not enough to be not racist. We need to be anti-racist. We need to have these conversations. And I really applaud you for pushing all of this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gallo. The next speaker is Keely Koch, or Koch.
I don't envy any of your positions. I'm a parent in this county who just graduated an 18-year-old white male in a county that is extremely divided. So, with that being said, I think perhaps we should all take a moment and remember what it was like to be a kid in school. Pause and tap into that beautiful innocence and eagerness to learn. Remember how easy it was to absorb new ideas and information. There was never any fear involved with learning something new. There was only excitement and joy. There was no need to be afraid of these bright, powerful young minds learning things about our society in a light that feels scary to you as adults. You may feel ill-prepared for the conversations, but rest assured, your kids are ready. They are already having these conversations, and they can Google any of this information. The conversations you are fearing the most are not as scary or life-altering as you think they might be. Take some time to consider that maybe the thing you're railing against is not so much a new curriculum or a more child-directed learning approach or the hint of racial equity, but your own fear of unlearning some really antiquated thought processes and learning that some of that foundations that this country are built on are actually rooted in the things like white supremacy and systemic racism. We don't have to be afraid of these words or use them as weapons to protect your way of life. What we can do is gracefully acknowledge that there are changes that desperately need to be made in this county, this country, in order for students to experience a safe, healthy, emotionally and intellectually supportive learning environment. My homework assignment for the parents in this county, especially those that are buying into all of this unnecessary rhetoric about critical race theory, most of which you can never have a grasp on because you are white. For a moment, ask yourself, what is it you are really afraid of? Because these minds, these young minds, are fearless, and you can trust them and your educators to do hard things. They are ready to evolve. They are going to do it with you or without you so that they can make this county and this country a better place. They prove this to us time and time again. Don't you think it's about time you started trusting your children a little more with their own education and their own creative thinking? It's just a little challenge, people. It's only a conversation, and it really isn't that hard. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Koch. Please, I know you want to clap, and I know you're appreciative of all the comments, but it would really be great if you wouldn't. The next meeting, the next speaker is Laura Torres.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello. Thank you for allowing me to be here. My name is Laura Torres. My family and I spent the last year in Germany. There, we enrolled my 4-year-old and my 6-year-old in a German kindergarten where they thrived. They played, they learned German, and concurrently, my 6-year-old also completed Indian River Virtual Kindergarten through Osceola Magnet School. I am here because I want to contribute to creating the best version of Indian River County Public Schools. With mixed emotions, we decided it was time to return to Florida in April. While our virtual kindergarten experience was nothing but positive, I am plagued with thoughts about how going forward I might be shortchanging my children by sending them to school in Indian River County. I am not arguing that one school system is better than the other. There's pros and cons to both, but there is one thing that stood out as I watched the last school board meeting. I saw many concerns from parents that did not want content included in their children's curriculum because they did not want to feel uncomfortable, or for their kids to feel uncomfortable for being descendants of oppressors. Ignoring history is not going to make it go away. In a global world, context is everything, and knowing our past is going to make us stronger in the future. If I may, I'd like to share a few things I learned in Germany. They deal and cope with their difficult past. You are hard-pressed to find any young person that does not fully understand the Holocaust. You go to Berlin, and many things will remind you of Germany's controversial history. When you are around 12 years old, you watch Schindler's List with your class. You know why? Because Germans are collectively committed to making sure that this never happens again. They don't want it to happen again, and it isn't a debate. It's truly shameful how little we talk about imperialism in America. We've never dealt with it. And this is how you repent, by dealing with it. Any kid with a social media account is going to eventually realize that America is not as perfect as you thought it was. Through discomfort is how we grow, how we heal, how we understand what's possible, and the only way to move forward. Because, to quote a hero of mine, Maya Angelou, you do the best you can until you know better. And when you know better, you do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Torres. The next speaker is Rosemarie Wilson.
Good evening. Next month, on June 10th, the Florida Board of Education will consider a proposed rule according to the Commissioner, Richard Corcoran. Corcoran said, we're passing a rule that says to the 185,000 teachers in Florida, you can't indoctrinate students with stuff that's not based on our standards. The new B period, E period, S period, T period, best standards. He also said the publishers are infested with liberals, and we are not going to approve your bid unless a certain percent of our reading list is in your text. It's time to stand back, review the curriculum for a period of time, use good judgment, and eventually make a decision. Now is not the time to spend millions of dollars for naught. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. The next speaker is Mink Tyner. If she's out there, we'll have her come in, but we'll move on and just hold her spot. Not here? All right. The next speaker is Christy Mulatto.
I just want to thank you guys for having us back again. Advocating for children doesn't mean only advocating for the child in your home. It means taking off the mask and blinders and looking at all the children in the school system. All children don't have two-parent homes. All children don't have a family to support them. All children don't have the ability to learn social emotional skills in the home because they don't have a stable home. Teaching social emotional learning to students isn't about teachers teaching for parents, but yet guiding children into understanding their feelings in a school environment. Teaching inclusivity, respecting differences, coping, and much more. There are even schools at this time that are already taking steps towards that, and I see the great results in my own home. This is not taking parents' power away from their own teaching of emotional skills, but as the demand for social workers increases in schools, so does the need for this type of instruction from the schools. Perhaps your child will find more compassion for the kid acting out in school because that child is acting out in school is often the child that doesn't have guidance in the home. Social emotional learning can simply teach basic emotional skills to assist students while at school. This does not affect what you teach your children in the home. We can all be different and still respect each other. Oftentimes we fear what we don't know. Fear looks like anger, and I can understand parents' fears of what's being taught or not taught. But what isn't being taught is the truth about our history. We washed our history and left some of the greats out of history to glorify those that were unworthy. We need to tell our children the truth of how we got here, not just discussing the present racism, structural racism, but encourage, that's just putting a Band-Aid on an open wound. I encourage you to find a way to advocate to teach Black history and give credit where it's due. Columbus didn't set sail on the ocean blue and come here to have a cookout with us. Let's be honest. Teach about the historical African Americans in Black history, the women from NASA, the godmother of rock and roll, Miss Tharp, who opened doors for women in the music industry. Thank you. Just thank people like that. With positivity and truth, you create change. Do not fear what you don't understand. Seek to learn and experience what others different than you have experienced. Change starts small, but it won't change until we come together. Learn from your neighbors. Ask questions. I ask questions all the time of something I don't understand. We learn from each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Malato, sorry. The next speaker, Rashawn Green.
I was summoned here tonight. Imagine your child going their entire matriculation from kindergarten through 12th grade and never having a white teacher. Imagine your child only learning about Black history the entire time they're in school, except for 1 month out of the year. Imagine them being punished every time their behavior deviated from the behavior of Black students because the teacher didn't understand their culture. Imagine them being speech impaired and not receiving speech therapy because the majority of students do not need speech therapy. Imagine your child being physically impaired and no accommodations are made for them because the majority of students do not need those accommodations. Imagine your child being a national merit scholar but can't compete nationally because the majority of students aren't as gifted, so the school refuses to allocate resources to enrichment programs. Imagine you complaining about the challenges your child's facing, but it falls on deaf ears because the majority of students don't have those challenges. So you're ignored because the majority of parents don't share your concerns. Is that treatment fair? Is that treatment just? Is that treatment equitable? Equity in education requires putting systems in place to ensure that every child has an equal chance for success. To hear people label equity and diversity as fighting words, and those same people claim to be Christians, I have to question their motives because equity is love, acceptance, understanding, and assistance. Equity is not an agenda. It is what is needed to get to equality. Diversity is the practice of quality, of including or involving people from a range of different social and ethnic backgrounds and of different genders, sexual orientation. But now to talk about critical race theory. The district is not teaching critical race theory. They're not even discussing critical race theory. So I don't understand why we are discussing it or debating it. And critical race theory is a concept. Teaching students about what actually happened in American history is not critical race theory. It is not a concept. It is teaching the truth. It is the beginning of the end of teaching whitewashed American history lies. And it will not make white students feel guilty or like they are victims of reverse racism. It will actually help all students understand the history of those that do not look like them. It will naturally create empathy and understanding for each other. So why not allow them to receive the true history of America and let students come to their own conclusions? And Ms. Rosario, to watch you from the dais in your elected position spread conspiracy theories, something that's not even being taught in this district from sources that have no credibility. It's not only reckless, but it lacks integrity. You are elected to represent all people, all students, and you are being divisive and contributing to the circus that is destroying this district. And for all of you who are watching, her seat is up next year. Elect someone who will unify the community, the district, and represent all students. Someone who will lead with integrity and not spread political propaganda to get reelected. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Next speaker, Kevin Browning.
Good evening. It was a wonderful thing last board meeting to see the students that you had up here and to hear their accomplishments and what their parents helped them to do. And it was also wonderful tonight. I'd also like to give kudos and thanks to the school board, the teachers and the staff and the superintendent for keeping our kids and employees safe during this pandemic. We all know that masks were hard, but you saved lives. Curriculum. The district needs time to adopt the state-sponsored curriculum, break down the standards to the coaches and the teachers, and get the planning done in order to have a most successful school year. How much time will be lost if the district is interrupted in this process over fear tactics that are not happening? Not one black person I know has asked white people to apologize for the past. And yes, the Holocaust happened, Japanese internment happened, slavery happened, Jim Crow happened, segregation happened, and it was all evil and horrible. To address some of what was said from the dais and the podium, equity and equality are not racism. Doing some real research, you'll find that Florida Statute 1000.05 is called the Florida Educational Equity Act. It deals with race, ethnicity, national origin, gender, disability, religion, or marital status. So is it racist or wrong to help kids with disabilities or disadvantaged kids? Let's not lose kids by pursuing personal agendas as we go down rabbit holes, hurting kids and dividing the community. Instead of looking up and bringing policies from less desirable areas, dividing the community, let's ensure that every child graduates on time, on reading grade level, in every grade, and ensure that our area is the best in Florida and the nation. Oklahoma ranks in the bottom 10 states in the nation for child well-being and 42nd for education. Why would we follow anything Oklahoma does for education? Educationally, the top of the list for states goes Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Jersey, Virginia. Why don't you find research on what they're doing? Better yet, in Florida, St. Johns County is the top-rated district, and as a matter of fact, it's got Sumter, Palm Beach County, Calhoun County, Miami-Dade County Public Schools. If you wanted to spend your time researching curriculum, couldn't you research what state-sponsored curriculum they're using, and go from there, because they're the top? If you want to do good for the district, find ways to pay our teachers and support staff better. Help the food bank tackle poverty in schools. Address mental health and homelessness in schools. Find funding for programs like welding, plumbing, construction, the arts, and automotive, and enhance after-school programs. We need board members who make our community better, not spread stuff that's not happening.
Thank you, Mr. Browning. The next speaker is Michelle Sanford.
Hello, everybody. Allies, that's it. That is all every child in our community needs, is an ally. You don't have to agree with their life, and you don't have to feel bad for them. You just have to want every opportunity for every child. That's all I want. I am a parent of 2 children in our county. I came tonight to ensure that Dr. Moore and our school board members know that I am a parent who sees the need for ongoing strategic work focused on equity and inclusion in this district for all kids. I support the district in their attempt to an educational environment focused on culturally responsive teaching practices as per our county curriculum. And I hope to see more sustained training that will help our teachers and school administrators create learning environments that are safe, supportive, and inclusive to all students, including students of color, our LGBTQ+ students, students with 504s, students with disabilities, students who need a behavior analyst at their school daily, and all other children from historically marginalized communities. I would like to see our district invest in experts who can lead the work that needs to be done here. I am dismayed that the loud voices of several parents may have resulted in a leadership position focused on equity and diversity being removed. I also want to know how these responsibilities will now be delegated onto Dr. Long. I want my child and all children to learn in classrooms where history is taught unfiltered, where we celebrate the contributions of diverse leaders of different races, ethnicities, disabilities, religions, genders, and sex orientations, and where every child feels they have someone who understands them. It is critical that all children can see themselves reflected in our collective past, as well as in the adults who teach and lead them presently. Why would anybody oppose that? It is important to me that all children have the rich learning opportunities that come from emotional and social learning. I wish some of the parents here had been taught this. It is important to me that our district is not just best by some kids, but best by all kids. It is important to me also that every child feels seen, heard, understood, and accepted by their peers and mentors. Inclusion, equity, diversity, and other terms you've heard tonight are not coded. These are not dirty words. These are words embedded in the values of our country and many families. Yet they create such divide when a group who is not marginalized feels seen. I want every child to have the opportunity to a world-class education system, even if only in our tiny district, one that really is the best by kids, all our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanford. Next speaker, Michael Murray.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Moore, school district staff, and the many CWA support sisters and brothers. My name is Mike Murray, Vice President of CWA Local 3180, representing our 700 school district support staff. Wow, what a year we had. I do not think any one of us had any idea how difficult it would be to open our schools and what it would take to keep our staff and children safe during this pandemic, but we did it. And we were the forerunners of so many districts. So I'd like to thank Dr. Moore, his staff, and the school board for working with the CWA and the teachers union while we sat together and problem solved the many challenges that we faced to do what was best by children. Through many discussions, we were able to resolve complex situations and obtain great solutions. I would also like to thank our support staff for their bold sacrifices that were made to ensure our children were safe. Our bus drivers made sure each bus was sanitized after each trip. Custodians worked through almost impossible situations to ensure our school sites, classrooms, and offices were cleaned and sanitized. Our food service employees made sure our children were fed with healthy meals while providing a safe environment for all. Our bus mechanics were making sure our buses ran smoothly. Physical plant department keeping our AC units running, replacing drinking fountains with fillable water stations, and making sure the lights stayed on. Our secretaries worked with parents, calming them through these epic times. Student support staff and health assistants working with our children, making sure they were well treated and cared for. Just to name a few of the many duties performed by amazing support staff. As I mentioned before, I thank the district for working with us through this pandemic. But I'd also like to remind you that if it was not for the hard work and dedication of our support staff employees, we've never have been able to open our schools so quickly to get our children back to the brick and mortar. This accomplishment was achieved due to the dedication and extremely hard work by our support staff and should not go unrecognized. Dr. Moore, you have stated before that you support and would do anything for our teachers. Well, we're asking for the same treatment. Our employees deserve to be respected, they deserve to be recognized, and they deserve to be compensated for their dedication and hard work. As you know, we will be continuing our contract negotiation in June, and we hope that you'll give us the respect and recognition that we deserve while we continue through this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Becky Cook.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Moore. My name is Becky Cook. I'm a teacher assistant. I am part of the self-care aide, media assistant, ESOL assistant, computer lab assistant, and behavior tech group of support staff employees. We are with students 7.5 hours daily. Media and computer lab assistants are not only with students all day, but they also work with every student in the school. We also make the lowest annual salaries of full-time employees. As you know, an assistant lost her life to COVID this year. Since August, we have pressed past our fear, leaning into courage to assist the teachers and support students on a daily basis. This school year, the COVID toll on support staff employees is profound. Support staff employees are people in the trenches mustering the courage to go to work every day. They worry not only about their own health, but that of the loved ones that they live with. They worry about the predictability and stability of their jobs. Many experience stress and anxiety. Some are struggling to cope because they have lost a loved one. It has been a year like no other, and the immediate future is uncertain. Support staff are the hourly wage employees of Indian River County School District. We are vital to the school district's success. Respect us, honor us, and pay us a fair and just wage. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Next speaker is Maureen Weisberg.
Maya Angelou once said, "Without courage, we cannot practice any other virtue with consistency. We can't be kind, merciful, understanding, generous, or honest. I've learned that even when I have pains, I don't have to be one. Have enough courage to trust love one more time, and always one more time." It took courage for the support staff to work during a global pandemic. Not knowing if what we were doing was safe, Courage for bus drivers to bring food to children when we were told to shelter in place. Courage for food service workers to make meals while working together indoors. Courage for maintenance to pull out water fountains and replace them with water bottles. Courage for custodians to spray and decontaminate every night and place hand sanitizers for all our students. Courage for teacher assistants, secretaries, bookkeepers, and nurses in masks and sneeze shields to navigate many new and complex rules and systems in a short amount of time with taunting pressure. Courage for everyone to leave family to work without certainty that we had done everything possible to keep ourselves and our children safe, and even then, hoping it would all be enough. And yes, we had our heroes this year, those who sacrificed everything, and loved ones we have lost. We now ask Dr. Moore and our esteemed school board members to show courage to these amazing individuals. By granting them a living wage, we ask that you show courage during bargaining, that we can trust you to do what is right and help ensure these people can survive and thrive in a community they have had the courage to sacrifice so much for this past year. On behalf of all CWA support staff, we wish everyone a healthy summer break. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Weisberg. Next speaker, Wilford Hart.
Wilford Hart. You know, I was going to talk about the DSEG order, but listening to my friends behind me, and they're talking about that critical race theory, I'm disturbed. See, you call it a theory. I'm going to tell you about the critical race fact. My father took myself and my brother and made us go to Osceola back in 1965. I was in second grade. Had the greatest white teacher in the world. She loved me. She treated me like I was her own. She made sure the students treated me like I was a human being. I get to my third grade and my fourth grade, and they called me nigger. Made me sit in the back. I can't ever forget this mess. Made me sit in the back of the classroom. Miss Preston and Miss Brown, third and fourth grade. You want to know about facts? I'm tired of this theory mess. I'm going to tell you about facts. It hurt. It hurt my brother as well. We're the only two black students in the whole school before they integrated the school system. My father came here from the Bahamas, and he could not handle the fact of what was going on in the school system. And being the local branch president in NAACP, he said him and his team gonna do something about it. I'm expecting y'all to do something about it. I'm gonna meet with these folks here as soon as I get this new position. I'm gonna meet with Ms. Pippin, and I'm gonna meet with Ms. Justice, and I'm gonna sit with them, and I'm gonna let them know the facts of critical race, because we're not getting the facts. I have some friends, and I hope they're still here, professors, that are gonna really give you the whole detail of some of this stuff that's being passed down to the Moms for Liberty from this one organization, and it's not totally factual. And I have a problem with that as well. But today, I'm gonna ask the audience, study critical race theory. Because if you really wanna know about the facts, you can ask me and my brother. You can ask us, how did it feel? So you know what I did? I made sure I went to all black college. Bethune-Cookman University, predominantly black. Because I wanted to know about my blackness. Because the school system didn't want to teach it. But in my 11th grade, Miss Rush taught black history, and guess how many white students were in the class? At least 10 to 12 white students. It was an elective, and they wanted to know all about it. You ought to want to know all about it as well. And so I'm going to ask y'all tonight, do the right thing. Let's get behind this critical race theory, and let's get to the facts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Next speaker, Kelly Foster.
Here at the end of May, and kind of upset that we're still here talking about masks. Early on, we could fall back on not having the data, but right now, that's not the case. There are any number of mask optional schools that we could have benchmarked at this point, and more to the point, we know that the data shows that it works. Our top government officials have access to experts in their fields and to more data than any of us. Our governor, the Department of Education, they've both told the schools to unmask our kids. So why are our kids in our county still wearing masks? And why hasn't this board followed our governor and our Department of Education's recommendations already? Nearly everywhere has gone back to normal with optional masking. Restaurants, dentist's office, the doctor's office, even right here in this room, yet not our kids, who are the least at risk, they're still being forced by you all to wear masks for 8 hours a day. My understanding is that Indian River County is one of 6 counties left in this state to make masks optional or to set a date for it. That tells me that the majority of you up there are more interested in the power of your position than the health and safety of our kids. When 60+ counties in Florida have already taken action, we're still sending surveys. At this point, the refusal to lift the mandate seems to be nothing but selfish stubbornness, and it does nothing but hurt our children that we're supposed to be serving. I encourage you to take action tonight and lift the Band-Aid. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. That is the end of public comment, unless maybe one last time if Mink Tyner happened to return. If not, okay, I guess not. I asked my colleagues, is anyone interested in taking a 5-minute break before we go to action with that? Is that good?
Thank you.
All right, we'll take make it 7 minutes.
Thank you.
61. Before we move to the consent agenda, is there anybody on the school board or Dr. Moore that would like to comment after the citizen input?
Just briefly, Mr. Chair, I want to acknowledge the leadership of Maureen and Mike, our CWA unit. We are going into negotiations in the coming weeks, and everything that Mike and Maureen said regarding their willingness to step up, think differently, identify problems, and work for unique solutions has been an absolute key ingredient in terms of the success this district was able to open the way it was. So by all means, the value that we have in those individuals and the contributions that they play to creating a complete school system that is nimble and acts in the best interest of children at all times. Looking forward to getting at the negotiation table and creating a contract, talking about you, Mike, that honors their contributions and work in a very significant way. So just wanted to acknowledge what they said. And look forward to upholding my end of the bargain as we begin to negotiate.
Dr. Schiff?
Sure. I actually had a whole thing prepared, and I'm not going to read it, because I think the people who came tonight did it for me. And what I saw tonight, and I want to thank everybody who came out tonight, because what I saw is an issue that people are really passionate about, have a variety of different perspectives about, and want us to know how they feel. And I want to thank everybody who gave of their time tonight to come and talk about this. I want to be clear, as a couple of the speakers said, and I want to read something from the National School Board Association. While conversations about equity can sometimes become politically charged, educational equity is not a partisan issue. Educational equity is first and foremost about ensuring that school districts fulfill their core mission, successfully educating all students so that they are prepared to be productive and engaged citizens. Creating educational equity is of utmost importance because public schools serve an increasingly diverse population with a broad range of needs. The face of America's typical public school student has changed and will continue to change. And so that said, that's from the National School Board Association. And this is not a political issue, this is an academic one. We're not teaching critical race theory in schools, we never have been. That's not on the agenda, it's not in the books. Diversity, equity, inclusion are not code words for critical race theory. Culturally responsive teaching is not code word for critical race theory. Social emotional learning is not a code. And there's a lot more I want to say about that, but I don't want to take any more time tonight because I think a lot of people already said it. But I want to be on the record and clear that what we are doing in this district, nobody sits here because it's a barrel of laughs. Nobody sits here for the glory. Nobody sits here because we don't have anything better to do on Tuesdays. We sit here because we are just as committed to the well-being of every student, of every adult, of every family in this district as everybody sitting in this audience. And whether we agree on issues or don't, whether we feel the same way about them, we're not here simply because it makes us feel good. We're not here to dominate anybody. We're not here to control anybody. We're here because we're committed to the well-being of this district and everybody in it. And while people may not think that about me or anybody else on this board, I am clear that that's why we're all sitting here. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about what critical race theory is or isn't. As Mr. Hart said, it's a theory. It doesn't mean it's a practice. It doesn't mean it's an experience. It's an academic theory developed 30 years ago that is not infiltrating the curriculum. And to the degree that the Commissioner of Education and the Department of Education have vetted curriculum before it gets to us, are we saying that they don't know what they're doing? I don't think so. I think we are going with educational standards that have been vetted in this state. And it is, as academics, as academicians, as leaders, it is our responsibility to hear everybody who has a voice on this, including the governor, the Commissioner of Education, the Department of Education, the people in this district, and the research that we do on it. There's so much more to that. There's so much more to social emotional learning. And social emotional learning is a process by which children and adults acquire and apply knowledge and attitudes and skills to establish and manage emotions, to set and achieve goals, to feel and show empathy for others. I've sat in rooms with parents, with children of incarcerated parents, with children whose parents have committed suicide, with children in families who don't have enough to eat, with so many things that I can't begin to name here. I wish this was around when I was a student, because it sure would have helped me. It sure would have helped me a lot when my parents were going through a miserable divorce. It sure would have helped me if somebody had taken a minute to understand something that I was going through as a child. And I was a pretty privileged kid. I will completely admit that. But to say that social emotional learning is code for some other agenda, I've been quiet about this for a while, and I can't do that anymore. So I'm not buying into it, and I'm not buying into that these are code words, and I'm not buying into that we're trying to ram anything down anybody's throat. I think we do, frankly, an exceptionally good job of listening. And whether or not we all agree, I don't think we can say that this superintendent has not listened to the voices in this district, that he has not been out there innumerable times engaging in public meetings, on Facebook Live, meeting with school board members, meeting with parents, meeting with community groups. I don't know that there's a superintendent who does as much meeting as you do. I think it was Mr. Bass said today, the grass does not grow under this man's feet. So I want to, again, this is a difficult conversation, but it is a politicized one that really has no place in our schools. It has no place in our academic decision-making. It has no place to take political conversations grounded in conjecture and insert them into curriculum, which is not happening. It's not happening. It's not there. So on that note, thank you again to everybody who came out tonight, to everybody for whom I know it's difficult to get up at that podium and speak. I know it's not easy. I know that takes a lot for people to do. And I know to come out tonight was at the expense of other things that many people could have been doing tonight. So thank you all for coming out tonight. That's it.
Mrs. Berenborg?
Sure. Now that you brought that up, I'm going to say something. As promised last meeting, I said I was going to make a phone call to the DOE after the meeting, and I did. And surprisingly, I got a call back from the Chancellor of K-12 Education himself, Jacob Oliva. I was kind of surprised that the Chancellor actually spoke to me on the phone, which, you know, was nice that he took the time to do that, but he called me right back. He said they're very aware of the concerns that are happening in the division that's happening in our communities. It's not just happening here, it's happening across the state, it's happening across the nation. And they're also very aware that the curriculum that we will consider has been vetted for a year, but they are having people point out concerns that they have on particular HMH series that was brought up, along with the other series. So he did tell me that they are reviewing all the books again, and that if there are things that are of concern, those will be brought up and discussed within the next 30 days. That was from the last time I spoke to him. Now understand that this procedure that they go through is based on standards and standards alone. And those standards are approved by the legislature. So for you to say that we know better than what they're doing is really interesting, because they've gone through this whole theory. Now, citizens have the right, absolutely, to point out when there's something of concern. Somebody pointed out something to me today that made me go, oh, I need to go read that. And that's what our job is, to listen to those things. But to pick out one story out of an entire K-5 series with all these different stories and all these different books, we need to expose our kids to diversity. We need to teach love for each other. That's Kids of Hope, too. If you've never looked into Kids of Hope, which has been in our schools for a long time, please look at that. Because if you really want to pick apart something all the time, you know, you're going to find fault in anything. But I'm going to tell you that, you know, I, for one, don't want to vote on a series when I find any child feels wrong about their race. And when I see a story that points out that somebody should feel bad about their race, you know, think about the fact that probably in the past we've had stories that make other races feel bad. But that really hasn't been put out there as much. And now it's all coming to the forefront. And now school boards get to be in the middle of it. And this is a tough job. But it's a job that I'm thankful that I get to do because I get to listen to what's happening and make what I think is the best choice I can for all the kids in this county, not just for your child. And so as I attended all these wonderful graduations and awards in the last 2 weeks, and just the list is long, the one that really struck out at me this morning, and Doc Jones and I were at Citrus, and they were handing out awards, and they did a little parade with the kids. And what struck me was when a child was awarded an award, the kids went nuts for each other. And it didn't matter if they were white or black. It didn't matter if they were handicapped. They did it for all of the kids. We need to start doing that for each other. As adults, we need to be the models for kids. And I think it's the other way around right now sometimes. The kids are the models for us. And I mean, think about that. So I will say when the chancellor called me back, he did promise me that in the next 30 days, they will review all the books. Any book that they consider, which they are the conservative leadership that's up there right now, if the book is considered that it has something in it that is going too far, it will not make the list again. It will be pulled. If it has things that they think are going to teach children about diversity and social and emotional learning that's appropriate, and I agree with you, there is a time and a place for things, and I think people are taking words and running with them. Education, we have our own acronyms and our own words, and sometimes it's confusing for parents, and that's another thing we need to talk about, is how to help parents with those. When we talk about social and emotional learning, it's different than what's being out there in society right now. It really is. Because when I hear it, I think, wow, that's not exactly what we did in the schools. That's not how I consider it. And I know and I trust that Mr. Olivia is going to make sure that the books that we have an opportunity to put in our schools have passed everything. The books that you see out there may not be the end result books. That's what he told me. You know, but these things are put online and then they go to print. They print them right now for reviews. But then if there's something in there that somebody finds, and that's why we give the 30-day window so that you can go and appeal it. And if you win that appeal, then I feel like if it's appealed and the appeal is won, I can't vote for it. Because there must be something in there that the people that have looked at it, which are attorneys that are listening to the appeal, there must be something there that's a reason for the appeal. But if it goes through that appeal process and those attorneys say there's nothing here that the state hasn't allowed with what their process is, then there's no way that I think I can supersede that. You've got two attorneys there in the appeals process. If you feel like there's something in there that you need to have appealed, go through that process. That's why it's there. And then we will hear that process and we will make a decision in June. Okay? So I just want you to know I did follow up on that. I did call the DOE. I've called them several times this year over masks, over everything. And it's interesting what's being said in interviews, and then when you call their office, what's being told to you over the phone. And if you don't believe me, do it yourself. Call the governor's office the day after he makes that statement about unmasking children, and they will tell you to follow the CDC guidelines. So I just wanted everybody to understand that, because this is the position now we're in. I'm willing to listen, but I'm also willing to take the governance of some people that are really giving us that guidance of going through these materials more than we can. I can't go through all these materials and read all these policies and everything else. So that is why this goes through that 1 year look. And during that, though, now they're re-looking at them. So they're re-looking at them for the next 30 days. Okay? Thank you.
Dr. Jones.
Just a special thank you to everyone who spoke tonight. You could really hear the passion and emotion. And Mr. Hart, your speech moved me. I remember you telling me that story, and I think I said this in the workshop today. This is a public school system, and we will have equity. Equity is more than race, as we've said many, many times. Our special needs students, our merit scholars, people who need a little bit more help in ESOL, lots of things there. And this is something that we have to make sure happens as a school board. One of the speakers said something about Dr. Schiff and I not being up here on the dais, and she had a point. I voted against that. But when we vote, and it was a 3-2 vote, we agree to support what the majority of the board has stated. So that is why I'm up here. And I also double-checked the tape, and I did not say insurrection. I said there were raised voices, inciting, and disturbances. And that is what I felt from the last meeting, but I want to have that on record. Thank you.
All right. Mrs. Rosario, did you want to make a comment?
I've been mulling over whether I should. Sometimes silence is golden, but you know me, I'm hardly ever silent. So I will just reiterate for anyone who wants to cherry pick what board members or what I have said in previous meetings, to please not do that. Please don't cherry pick. If you want to understand the full context or kind of try to find out where I was reading or quoting from somebody else, please go to our previous meetings and watch and listen and take note and then post anything about me based on the reality of what was actually there. The cherry picking is really, it doesn't do anything except cause an uproar, not from me, because I was very, very clear, specifically on social emotional learning many times. Social emotional learning, I have said, Dr. Moore is shaking his head, I have said it, that is not critical race theory. We have had social emotional learning in our schools, which is critical for years and years and years. So that has not come from me. If it's come from other places, then so be it. But we cannot cherry pick and then accuse people of saying things that is just not true. Somebody said ignoring history does not make it go away. You know, not having a different opinion from you or not choosing to believe that critical race theory is appropriate for all students doesn't mean that we are ignoring history. It doesn't mean that we wouldn't be teaching Black history or African American history. There are plenty of ways to teach Black history, to embed multicultural education in our school systems than to be divisive. And really, I think that, I don't even know how many times I need to say that. There are really plenty of things, but I think at this point it would be prudent of me not to say any more. And so we have a lot on our agenda still, so thank you for that.
All right. Well, I would also like to thank everybody. I appreciate everyone was particularly articulate. Some have had a lot of practice. And we appreciate that. A couple of the items that were addressed tonight by all of you are in the action item. So you'll know what the outcome is before you leave, or you can read about it. So without further ado, I'm going to move the agenda along. And the next is to approve the consent agenda, having removed for discussion and action items 5B, 9B, and 10A. So may I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right, so we have, you all are quick to make motions. And so who gets credit for the second?
Doesn't matter.
All in favor?
Aye.
The vote carries 5-0.
Mr. Barefoot?
Yes, ma'am.
Just a note that we approved a lot of donations. I won't go through all of them. I just wanted to say publicly thank you to all those organizations that help us all the time to give special things to kids that we don't have necessarily in the budget. And so you can always read about those. And I just wanted to say that it was $47,480 this time. It's almost, more than $500,000 already this year has been donated. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
And to that same note, Mr. Herron, who was here earlier representing the Educational Foundation of Indian River County, that science fair and all those awards are all sponsored by donations to that charity. So that's a perfect example of what Mrs. Barenborg's talking about. Dr. Schiff?
Yeah, the other, couple other things that we just approved in the consent agenda that I want to call a little attention to. Item 5A was approval to work with the local NAACP to develop a unitary sustainability policy. That was an item brought by Dr. Jones for discussion this afternoon, and I encourage people to go back and look at that discussion. The charge was to the superintendent to bring forth a recommendation for that policy by August 10th. We had a big discussion about who should be included in that, how that should work, broadening the scope of community organizations who would have a seat at that table and a voice in that policy, and I encourage people to go back and watch that discussion this afternoon. Secondly, I want to just call attention to item 10A, which is approval of the 2021-2022 CI Solutions Zoner Z-Pass agreement. That is an incredibly long overdue safety, security, ID.
She pulled that item.
You pulled that, never mind, I'll talk about it later. You're right, never mind, I'll talk about that when we get to discussion.
Okay, so the first item that was pulled from consent was item 5B. Mrs. Barenborg.
Yes, it states here face covering requirements, but it doesn't exactly have an action item. That's why I pulled it, because I think we need clarification here, because just putting face covering requirements doesn't tell anybody exactly what we're approving. The other thing is, I believe we've already talked about face mask optional for summer programming, correct? Have we officially voted on that or had to vote on that? Because I thought we already made that motion to do that, because I heard from the podium that we haven't done that, and so I was a little confused.
So tonight, the item is to provide an update and make a recommendation regarding the requirements that are currently in place. We had at discussion the opportunity to engage in the dialogue regarding face coverings for summer. And then June 22nd is the opportunity to look at what we would be doing for the fall. But based on my initial research, I guess, is the item on the floor?
Yes.
Okay. In looking at the research, I feel comfortable making a recommendation to the board regarding our path moving forward. And, you know, the truth be told, we're going to evaluate and receive feedback and make it a determination that is in the best interest of all children, as well as the totality of the school system. Taking the time to listen to those who are in our classrooms, those are driving the buses, those that are serving the food, to really get a deep understanding of, are we prepared to move a recommendation forward that would allow us to be mask optional. So yeah, I took the time to listen, as I always do, and make a decision or a recommendation in this case that is in the best interest of the system and puts us in a place that we will be ready for the opening of schools. So in looking or receiving feedback from our families, overwhelmingly, over 80% of our families are more than comfortable returning to a mask optional environment. So that's not hearsay, that's not a guess, that's asking the direct question. Over a significant number of our employees, all employees had the opportunity to respond to a survey on a scale from 1 to 5, 5 being I'm absolutely okay, let's go mask optional. That rating for all of the over the 1,000 that filled it out was 4. So, you know, in receiving that feedback, step one, but sitting down with our unions, ensuring, are there things that we still need to work out? Absolutely. When you look at where we are in terms of COVID as a community, we continue to improve. And when we first discussed this at the 2 weeks ago at 2 weeks ago at workshop, I reviewed the two different criteria in which the CDC uses, whether it's the cases per 100,000 or the cases over the last 7 days, the straight average. Both those numbers across the entire state, as well as with our community, continue to decline. When you look at the state of Florida, the governor is willing to put together an executive order that says masks will be optional for the opening of school. The commissioner has already sent memos to superintendent saying you should be mask optional when schools are opening. And the reality is, I feel comfortable as a system and fully taking a deep understanding, a step back from the reality, the opportunity to listen, to say that we can be mask optional effective June 1st. And I think the reality is we need to make a decision. So if there are families who are not comfortable with that decision, it's inevitable. It is inevitable. We need to be prepared and give them enough time. So waiting to make a decision in a lot of ways is hurting those without the amount of time. So we have a virtual program that we think is going to be stellar in terms of the academic performance. I think some of the parents that spoke tonight spoke in regards to the quality of that programming, and we're looking forward to continuing to enhance that if that be the demand. Right now, all the information that I have put out, and I have said publicly a number of times, we're working to be mask optional when school starts, and make your decisions based on being mask optional. We're not seeing a uptick in virtual enrollment, but we don't want to wait to the last minute to create master schedules and ensure that we're ready for brick and mortar and or virtual when school starts. We played the shell game all year long, I think across the nation. We're going to see the impacts of COVID, and it's going to be very dramatic. You're going to see students who got back into brick and mortar 50% through the school year, and the impact that had on them is significant. So barring a major uptick in scores or COVID cases or an outbreak, my recommendation would be effective June 1, we would be mask optional. The only exception would be summer programming, in which I would say on the bus you should be wearing a mask at this particular point, and then bring what would be the Safer of School plan. The body of the Safer of School plan would really focus in on the safety procedures, the social emotional support, how to ensure that we're providing an environment, whether you want to wear a mask or whether you don't want to wear a mask, everyone feels accepted and embraced for what is or is not on their face. No mask shaming or you're not wearing a mask. It goes both ways. So how do we as a community support an environment in our schools where families have the opportunity to make a decision for their children to be actively engaged and feel accepted in our school system? So that is the recommendation that I propose to the board members.
Mrs. Barenberg, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I make a motion that we start mask optional by June 1st.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs.
I'd like
Rosario?
I'd like to amend that. I just want to be clear, unless maybe you want to be clear, the recommendation was masks optional June 1st, with the exception of summer school. What the superintendent is asking is to have masks on for buses during transportation, is what I heard. So I don't know if you want to.
Let me ask, why is that?
Just the confined space that we're there, the number of buses that we are running. So, it's just a very, very confined space, high number of students on the bus. I think in terms of on-school environments, it gives us the opportunity, based on the ratios, based on the size of the campuses, we're going to have the opportunity really to be mask optional, even if nothing changed. And I've said that a number of times. But looking at the bus and how we've organized the bus and operate them, I think it's just a good first step.
If students on the bus are socially distanced, would they be able to take their masks off? At the end of the route when you have 3 kids left on the bus.
I don't think that's never been the problem, but if you were to adhere to the way that our plan is, then the answer would be yes.
Okay.
I have a,
So
I'm sorry.
What,
do you want?
we've got a motion on the floor
Do you want to keep your motion?
No, I'll pull my motion back. I understand that we still have some people that haven't gotten vaccinated that wanted to be vaccinated. I get that. I think by the fall, though, those people that are employees will know that that's what the expectation is that we're going to be mask optional. So I will make a motion to make masks optional beginning June 1st, except for summer program for the buses when they cannot be socially distanced on the bus.
All right, do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Mrs. Rosario. Okay, further comment, Dr.
Yeah,
Schiff.
I want to be clear that I'm hearing this right. Mask optional, June 1st. Now, I have a couple things I want to be clear. So the superintendent recommended not mask optional on buses where it's a confined space. Mrs. Berenborg, you said, what if there's only a few people on the bus and they're spread out? Would that be okay? What I want to clarify, and I guess this would be to Dr. Moore, is that leaves the bus driver responsible for enforcing or not enforcing the policy and determining when there's few enough kids on the bus to be mask optional. That potentially leaves the bus driver in the position of the decision maker.
Don't they do that now?
They've been doing that all along.
Yeah.
Well, except
And
it's
so
been a
have the
consistent
teachers.
policy that says you have to wear a mask. It's one policy. It's not a policy that says wear a mask sometimes, except when you're distanced enough and I make the decision. It's a little bit different. So I'm not against it. I'm not against the idea
From an
of optional.
operational standpoint, and I think if Mike Murray had the opportunity to come to the podium, he would say that's what we need to compensate our bus drivers, because they are the authority on that bus. And right now, it's a one-and-done policy, but they do enforce it as they are driving the bus. And from, not want to say that I have ever driven a bus, but chaperoning field trips, you can more than socially distance on those particular buses. So I'm not overly concerned that our bus drivers can put that into practice and do it in a way that is safe and secure and effectively implemented.
Okay, second question. Previously, when we talked about summer school, we talked about mask optional. When there were, when social distancing of 3 feet was possible and requiring masks when it was not. Are we rescinding that and saying mask optional all the time irrespective of the 3 feet?
Irrespective of the 3 feet, mask optional, and we'll put together a guide of best practices, things we'll be doing to ensure the cleaning of the buildings continue, options within classrooms. So there's a number of things that allow us to support a level of comfort for all children. I don't think for summer it's going to be any issues at all, but as we roll out for the opening of schools, these are the health and safety measures that we're taking to support a mask optional environment. And we'll fully inform the community as we did for the opening of schools last year.
May I ask a question? For those students that want virtual option, that might have an underlying health condition or something like that, that's why the parent still wants masks or is worried about it, is that option available for them for summer school?
We talked about that.
No, I just want,
So
him to answer it here.
No, you're
there's
right.
going to be a number of one-offs, and I think the answer to that direct question is yes. The answer to the question that my child is in a magnet or in a choice program and has a health condition where we don't feel comfortable, I'm going to honor that and continue to allow them whenever they do feel safe to return to that choice or magnet school. You know, any superintendent or leader who makes this is the rule and we're going to follow it without looking at the individual situations of unique families is going to be on the wrong of that individual family. So taking the time to look at each case individually, we've continued to grow. It was 84% for the beginning of the fourth 9 weeks. They still continue to come back to brick and mortar. From a social, emotional, academic standpoint, we need our students in school. We need them feeling safe. We need them feeling comfortable. We're going to have to make up a lot of ground next year, especially in math, and we've got to get this right. We've got to get this right. And I think based on what I've learned in terms of the resiliency of our staff, of our teachers, and what we have learned together and how we have come together this year, man, I cannot wait till next year. We're going to be great.
All right, we have a motion on the floor with a second.
Can you repeat the motion?
Masks optional, beginning June 1st, except for on buses when it's not socially distanced.
Only for summer.
For the summer, right, for the summer program. Thank you.
All right, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. You're allowed to. I think we'd
Long
all like to
overdue.
join too, because.
Long overdue. Nobody wants to wear a mask.
Nobody
I don't
wants to
think.
wear a mask.
Long overdue.
And I think we're all delighted to be in a position to be able to vote in favor. And I think as one of us said somewhere along the way, if it was up to me individually or up to somebody else, you may have voted to eliminate the mask a long time ago. But I think unfortunately, or not unfortunately, it's our responsibility to consider the whole district, the 2,000 employees, as well as 17,000 and some kids. And I think, I speak for myself, that was one of the reasons that if it were just me, I'd have been done with the mask long ago. All right. Moving on, the second pulled from consent. Mrs. Rosario, you have item 9B.
I do, thank you so much. I only pulled 9B so that the superintendent had an opportunity to present. He presented to us this afternoon during a superintendent workshop. This and the next item for the Z-Pass, I think are both very, very critical. I think they're both very important to not just present it to us, but to present it to the community. So I will hand it over to Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Ms. Rosario. The next item is what I would consider a minor reorganization of the district staff. Over the course of the year, we've gone through the adoption of a new strategic plan. One of the foundations of that strategic plan was effective fiscal management, being a good steward of the people's money in order to ensure that we are maximizing every dollar to ensure that we're maximizing the full potential of all students. In implementing that practice over the course of this year, through the leadership of Cabinet, looking at the expenditures in which they're accountable for, we're able to realize a overall 2% or 5% increase in the district operating budget. We use that 5% savings as an opportunity to repurpose those funds to fund pieces of this reorganization, as well as put about $371,000 back in the hands of classrooms and teachers and principals at school sites. So this overall reorganization of the district comes at a 2% savings to the district in the amount of $371,900.12. There are some things that we set out to agree, above being effective fiscal managers of the people's money, but also enhancing our ability as a district, a support staff, really to design ourselves in the way that ensures principals and teachers have everything they need in terms of support, in terms of guidance, in terms of expectation, and program delivery in order to be absolutely 100% engaged with students each and every single day. Make their job, the most complex, most rewarding job in the world, as easy as possible. So we knew that there were some things that we needed to do. I'll speak briefly through some of the highlights of this specific reorganization. From a business standpoint, looking at positions within the district that are either self-funded or generating funds in order to improve the quality of support and services. Looking at how we engage families and community involvement. There's significant opportunities to enhance that body of work. Parental involvement. Once again, a significant opportunity to leverage and provide meaningful resources for parents to connect and engage at school sites, to be partners, to completely be involved 100% with the quality of education that we in the school system provides. We need to open up our school doors and provide meaningful ways to engage and involve parents. We need to do a better job in looking at that. As it's been discussed tonight, really creating the district and the system in a way where we continue to build equity, diversity, and access, ensuring that we as a community have a deep understanding of what that means and how we collectively are willing to engage in difficult conversations to ensure that we are the community that every other community is envious of. And some of the dialogue and conversations may seem uncomfortable, but man, it is so encouraging that we are now in the midst of those conversations and willing to put this reorganization forward that will really begin to continue to put the right people in the room to engage in the dialogue, to create classrooms and schools where the system of schools pulls us all together to improve every opportunity for all students. So I will briefly go through some of the offices that were being proposed and give some examples. We were able to get Florida Blue to fund for us a district wellness specialist. This is an individual that will ensure that our teachers and faculty and staff are provided programming, professional development, incentives to fully understand how to take care of themselves, how to participate in wellness and health programs. The more healthy and physically fit and mentally fit we are as a staff, the more effective we can be in serving our children, and ultimately the more money that Florida Blue can save in terms of us not having to access our health care. So a win for them and an equal win for us. Marketing quality control food specialist. This is an opportunity for us to do a better job of branding and marketing the absolutely fresh, wonderful food that we are serving in our cafeterias to create a buzz around the great things happening in our cafeteria. We know that we could, through the generation of those funds, more than absorb the cost of this position, but really begin to generate additional funds to continue to grow the quality and kinds of food that we're providing in our cafeteria. The creation of, or the repurposing of a director position to a cabinet level position, Assistant Superintendent of Student Affairs, Advocacy, and Access. That position will be led by Mr. Eric Seymour, who I'm going to ask to come to the podium at the end of my presentation. This is the cabinet level position that ensures that every single concern and issue within our system is effectively addressed, gives him the authority to problem solve with principals regarding positive solutions, as well as with family and parents. Also, the access that is needed. Whatever that access may be across the entire system, the $300 million organization is designed in a way to ensure that that access, whether it be opportunity for extracurricular activities, whether it be sports programming, whether it be AP or honors courses, that is available. So we will create that additional position in order to ensure that work continues to be done. We are repurposing the coordinator of equity and family and community engagement and bifurcating those two responsibilities. I have learned over the course of the last several months that we need to be more intentional of deepening our understanding, coordinating the conversations around equity, diversity with multiple facets of the community. And having someone at the cabinet level and the bureaucracy of the running of the system isn't going to get it done. So creating a sole focus of an equity coordinator to do this work is the absolute right way to go, while at the same time continuing to maintain the expectation everyone in this system has the responsibility to embrace a public school system that addresses the needs of all children. We will not walk away from it. Also, the parent and community involvement. We need to, as I have said, leverage the opportunity for parents to access their child's education at school sites. Significant work needs to be done there. I think this year was impacted significantly by COVID, but we're excited to bring those two sole focus responsibilities, which will continue to build that responsibility. Offering a community liaison specialist. This is the opportunity to create a position in which we're in the community, informing everyone of the great work that's being done, while at the same time have an ear in terms of what's happening in the system. So the school system deeply understands the needs of the community, is not sitting back and acting in a silo, but we're active equal partners. And right now, the system isn't designed in a way to engage in those particular conversations. So we will add that position and begin to ensure that that work is being done. When you look at, Mr. Stewart, welcome back, sir. In looking at curriculum and instruction, we had a CTE coordinator position. We are eliminating that position and then repurposing it as a STEAM coordinator. A STEAM coordinator ensures that the quality of our STEAM initiatives, which are in a majority of our schools, is being done. Math is going to be
Oh, can I clap for that one?
Oh, no. Yes. Math is going to be an uphill battle for the generation that is in our schools right now. And we need to provide additional support in order to get that done. So creating that STEAM program, science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics, gives that additional focus in Mr. Meyer's shop, while at the same time lessening some responsibilities of other individuals so they can take a deeper focus in language arts. So even though we're just saying we're adding a STEAM position, we're freeing up time of other individuals to take a deeper dive in their areas of responsibility as well. In terms of the college and career technical educational specialist, that is a new position. So the shift in thinking for CTE is to eliminate it from a district perspective and circle it back underneath the principal, ensuring that the principal has the authority to look at the programs in their school, be accountable for, are they relevant programs, are they addressing the needs of their specific kids. We need resources as close to kids as possible. And we need to really begin to continue. This is the third reorganization we have done, and this is the third shrinking of the district's budget as a result. And we will continue to do that and push resources back to kids. This gives a direct support to students for career technical education and allows the principals the support at the school site really to drive their vision around college, career, and technical education. So we're excited to provide that. Creating under Mr. Meyer's shop a director for extended learning opportunities. So there she is, Ms. Emerson. This year under innovation, that work was carved out under her area of responsibilities and has done an outstanding job in beginning that process. But we have learned as a result of COVID-19 that when we have children in our space, in our classrooms, on our campuses, we need to provide engaging, innovative, meaningful instruction and interventions and enrichment for those students. So we will continue to build upon that with this new position. Also, summer programming need to continue to ensure that there's a smooth transition. And here's another good example. This also frees up other areas, the accountability, the area of academic success, the Department of Instructional Innovation, providing this position allows them to take a deeper focus in their specific areas. So a distribution of resources or responsibilities allows us to take a deeper dive in terms of the volume and quality of support. Also within this specific area, wraparound services. I think what were so many great things about this community, but leading the way is the number of organizations that are willing to support, put their shoulder to the wheel around helping children grow. And we need to coordinate them, lead the work in terms of where we need those resources. This position will help coordinate that work as well. Under Ms. Dampierre's shop, looking at our nurses in schools. We want everyone who is a nurse in a school to be a RN or an LPN. We have 3 individuals who are naturally separating from our system, going on to do retirement or other things, and we're happy for them. But as we replace them, we're going to have that criteria in place. We do not want anyone in our schools who doesn't have the appropriate qualification or skill set to be in service, especially around the health of our students. Over the next 3 years, we'll be able to move us to a place where all of those LPNs LPNs or RNs in our schools. And it's a student or a faculty and staff approach rather than just conducting a reduction in force or eliminating individuals. Taking the time, we'll be able to do this in a way where no one is offset in terms of employment. And I think that's the right way of doing it. A data coach as well will be implemented. And we've spoke and very, very proud of the work that Dr. McMahon has done. He has created, I don't want to quote the number of dashboards. What's that? There's 17 different dashboards that you can filter down, pulling resources from probably 17 different sites. And the ability to understand how to manipulate that data that is now housed in one place accelerates a principal or instructional coach or teacher's understanding of how impactful their instruction was. So having the dashboards is powerful, but ensuring everyone understands them at the same level in which Dr. McMahon, who creates them, which is a tall order to fulfill, but really ensures we're drastically accelerating our own organizational intelligence on understanding the impact of instruction. So this data coach will be fully in schools, providing that support to principals, instructional coaches, and teachers, really to deepen our understanding. Those are the positions that will be repurposed or developed. There was a number of positions in which we looked at job descriptions. So we challenged Cabinet to go through their areas from a district perspective, look at those positions that needed to be modified, assignments adjusted. So the cost of this reorganization incorporates those shifts or changes. So we're very happy about this reorganization. It allows us really to ensure that we are putting children first, and we're designed in a way to maximize the support, continuing to have a deep focus on pulling our community together around diversity and equity. And as I say that, I would ask Mr. Seymour, who will be our new assistant superintendent, to come to the podium. I know his wife is here. And his mentor is here. And you want to talk about someone who makes the decision very, very, very easy. As Ms. Pippin has already given him credit this night, doesn't shy away from a difficult conversation. Every peace of mind I could possibly have when he's on the phone dealing with a difficult situation, the best interest of the student, regardless of what the conversation may be, is going to be put at the forefront. And so happy if you have the opportunity to lead this work.
Thank you. To the chair, board members, Dr. Moore, you know, it's you know, a lot of work, but I think I've made some gain in giving me the opportunity to talk to parents and students and work out problems I live for. Just to listen to parents and some of their concerns. A lot of schools really don't know, and me being able to carry that to schools, getting principals to understand that, hey, we can work this out together. We don't have to stick to rules. Let's look at our kids and let's make a decision together, has happened, and often. And that I'm very grateful to our principals. I wouldn't be able to do this again without our parents. And I gotta say, parents, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate each and every one. Growing up here, you know, in Vero Beach, the old school board was a hospital. A lot of people may know how old I am now, but you know, it's a ways back. And you know, that's where I was born. And my mom, you know, put in 40 years in Indian River Memorial Hospital. And there was times that I would go in the emergency room and wait for her, you know, see her work and do things for people. And my father, who was very caring, Grove owner here, foreman, and was in the fruit business for many years. That's all he did, was for people. Even times that, you know, we struggled, he was there. Now we can talk about a little equality here. And I grew up poor little street, some of the best athletes in the world. All of us, you know, got educations and did well. But behind us was, you know, a little more affluent street. And it was that lady who lived on that street, was my wife, Vicki, of 30 years. And I couldn't go back there all the time, but look, I have her now, and thank you. And she's in my corner. She was an educator. She was a director in St. Lucie County and did a marvelous job and just worked for kids and continues to. And for that, I'm very grateful to her. And, and when we talk about mentors, of course, I started at Vero Beach High School as a teacher and became a dean, administrative dean at the time. You're certified to be a principal, but that was, you know, the level at the time. And my mentor as a teacher was Miss Martha Hudson. That's Edwina's mother, Dr. Sue's mother, and Dr. Eddie Hudson, who would put the fear of God in you. You know, if you nothing late in making sure that you did what you were supposed to do as a teacher. And she gave me all of the values necessary for me to make decisions that would carry me further. And I appreciate that family for that support. Becoming an assistant principal, I was an assistant principal for a short period before I was recruited out of Indian River County and worked for this young lady here, Miss Jerry McPherson at Lincoln Park Academy for so many years. She's done so many wonderful things, and I'm so appreciative of her for guiding me and giving me the opportunity. I remember, let's see, we were ranked about the 21st school in the country at the time, and no lab, no computer lab. And back at that time, that's when they were kind of putting the labs together. But I wanted to challenge kids, and I knew that they had the potential, but had to find a way to do it. And our at-risk kids, we knew where they were, and they were improving. But at Lincoln Park Academy, all of the kids are doing fairly well. But we had a gifted group of kids who, maybe 364 kids who were getting A's constantly, and that bothered me. You know, it's just, okay, you mastered the concept, you got an A. It didn't really work well with me. So we didn't have a lab, and we pulled computers together. Ms. McPherson gave me that opportunity. When we got these computers, at that time, the FCAT was just, you know, coming about, and there was an assessment program that I put and built into that computer lab. And I tested the kids, and our kids failed. The gifted ones at about 53rd percentile. I said, boom, we got it. And then it was on after that. And the kids understood that now, okay, there's a level, you know, that I can reach. Instead of just getting an A, I know how to get an A, but can I be pushed? And I, again, am so grateful for Ms. McPherson for giving me that opportunity. Also, HCO, you know, what a department. I mean, we gel from day one, and just to, Mr. Bass, good guy. No, just grateful. Thank you. Thank you. For all of the HCO members and every person in there, you know, been supportive, day one. So I'm grateful and thankful for all of those. Margaret Dawson Brown, you know, keeping us going, laughing, something good each and every day. She's such a sweetheart. You know, Dr. Sue, Michelle Oak, Beth Hofer, you know, go on and on. Jamie Herndon, who's, you know, she's just a superstar. She's quiet, she goes in, comes back. So many of those individuals have been supportive, and when I ask for support and need something, boom, they're right there. You know, Marie, all of those guys have done such a great job, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. But again, I went to the board, to the chair, Dr. Moore, Mr. Bass. I'm gonna give it my all. And I hope that by this time next year, you say it was a great move. And I'm going to give it my all to make sure that it happens. Thank you.
All right, now, Ms. Rosario, you get to propose.
Oh, okay, yes, I forgot. So okay, so I really wanted to, because now I'm like distracted. I'm not gonna be able to do this unless I address, I have to say that I've kind of followed you over the years. And the only thing that keeps coming, first of all, this is well-deserved. So congratulations. We haven't voted yet, but congratulations. There's the parable of the shrewd manager. It's the only one that comes to mind when I think of you in this new position. And I'm gonna read it. I tell you, use worldly wealth to make friends for yourselves, so that when it is gone, they will welcome you into eternal dwellings. Whoever is faithful with very little will also be faithful with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you have not been faithful with worldly wealth, who will you entrust with your true riches? And I think that kind of doesn't need more explanation. But sir, I truly believe that you have been faithful with little and deserve the much. And so now I get to make a motion. Dr. Moore, you know my concerns, my few concerns that I have. I trust that you will always make the right decision, and I thank you for the reorganization. Just a little bit before, the reorganization does not belong to the board. We don't create it. This is the superintendent's reorganization, and he brings it to us as a recommendation. So at this point, I make a motion to approve the superintendent's 2021-2022 reorganization.
Second.
And Dr. Jones, you second?
Yes.
All right. Any further comments or discussion?
I just want to say, I know you rock. And we go way back to coaching days and fellow principals in St. Lucie County, and I've watched you as well. But I got to tell you that, Eric, I have heard so many positive comments from parents who called me very upset. And then I said, I'm going to give you Eric Seymour. And then they'll call me back and say how wonderful they felt like they were treated. So thank you. You're a rock star.
Dr. Schiff, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be brief, maybe. Congratulations. Well earned, well deserved. I remember first meeting you when you were principal at Oslo in 2014, and going back to do work there and being so disappointed that when you were no longer the principal. And I could not be more delighted to see you get the position, the authority, the responsibility, and the capacity that you deserve. It has long been missing from you have long been missing in action from where this district needs you. So thank you. I'm delighted about that. And I have to just say real quickly, thank you for mentioning Ms. McPherson's name, because I have been sitting here this entire meeting trying to figure out where I know you from. And it's FAU. I've been at FAU and it's been driving me nuts where I know your face from. But I remember you from your tenure at FAU. I've been there for 30 years. So nice to see you again in this capacity. Congratulations. When we get to the consent agenda, I'd like to also offer congratulations to Mr. Hart, but we haven't quite gotten there yet. We have.
Yeah, we did.
So while we're on the topic,
We didn't vote, but no. Did we vote? Not yet. Not on this item, we didn't vote on this.
Yeah, but this was pulled. We voted on consent before. I want to also, while we're on the positions that will be working with Mr. Seymour, I want to acknowledge Mr. Hart. Because in consent, we also approved Mr. Hart. We did, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Just double checking, because I know I've looked at that a whole bunch of times. We also approved Mr. Hart as to fill the community liaison specialist position that will be working with Mr. Seymour around those issues, and I want to say congratulations to you too. I could not be more delighted at your appointment for that as well. And between the two of you and the other positions that will fill that department, could not be happier at where it looks like we may be going in this district. So thank you both in advance for the extraordinary service I know you'll give. Thank you.
Not to be outdone. Go ahead, go ahead, Dr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Hart, for becoming part of the team. As I said earlier when you spoke, you touch me every time you speak. And I think a lot of us will have lessons learned just from your experience, and I appreciate that. As I said before, this is a public school system, and we will have equity. And Mr. Seymour, I think we go back, I don't want to say how far, but Dean of Vero Beach High School, and then attendance officer when I was principal at Gifford Middle, and then our connection with when you were at Vero Beach High School, I was at Sebastian River High School, and very, very proud of the selection Dr. Moore has recommended, and I know there's nowhere to go but up. Thank you.
And the only thing I would add before we will vote is, one, where you have most conversations at the most unexpected place. It was in the parking lot this afternoon with Mr. Seymour. And from what I know and the little bit of interaction I've had, you all know much better than I, but he's going to do great. But I have to tell you a story about Mr. Hart. So I decided, much to my wife's chagrin, and it continues, to decide to run for school board. And it got out, I don't know how it got into the public domain. The first person that I heard from was Wilford Hart. And I don't remember, Wilford, you will remember, whether it was a text or a phone call or whatever it was. Oh, you're right. That's exactly right. When we were honoring the retiring chief, and Freddie Wolfwork was there, and he was the sort of the MC of the night. But that's right. But the first person I heard from, and every time I've had a question, particularly it relates to trying to understand some of the backdrop regarding the NAACP long-standing issue, Mr. Hart. Wilford's been there to educate me, and I needed a lot of education because this is very different here from where I have been and come from. So, Wilford, thank you and congratulations, and I'm sure that you, Mr. Seymour, and everybody else, we're gonna make a lot of progress, and we're gonna put this whole litigation behind us, and we're gonna get to unitary status, and as we discussed forever this afternoon, in a way that continues well beyond, the designation of unitary status. So with that, I'd like to call the question. All in favor of approving the superintendent's reorganization plan?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? If you are, you don't have the guts to speak up. It's 5-0. And again, congratulations to everybody. So the last item 10A that Mrs. Rosario asked to be pulled, once again, Mrs. Rosario, it's all yours.
Yes, thank you. This is another one of those items that I thought was very important to present. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bass.
Thank you, Ms. Rosario. Through the chair, kind of going to be hard to follow Mr. Seymour and Mr. Hart, but hopefully I'll bring as much joy as they did. One of the things in coming to the district, a little over a year ago, realized we needed to do some work in some areas in transportation. And another thing, too, that we saw was we needed to take one more step to keep our students safe. So we're introducing a couple of products tonight that hopefully you will approve, and moving forward, they'll be ready for the next school year, that are in the realm of transportation, but they also affect other areas of our children's lives at our schools. We are going to be introducing an ID card system that all students will have. This is going to be something a little new to the district. It is used in many other districts, but first and foremost, this ID card system is going to keep kids safe by using the card to be able to identify who's on campus and what campus they should be on. On the screen there, you will see in the top right-hand corner a sample ID card. We will have ID cards for all students that will be school-specific, and it'll be multifunctional cards in that it will serve as their ID. Also, it will be used for transportation. And the way they will use it for transportation is they will swipe their card when they get onto the bus and off of the bus. It's going to give us accountability. We do have situations that occur from time to time where we have a kid, especially a younger kid, that will get off the bus in the afternoon and not maybe go to where they're supposed to go. And a lot of times we are trying to track down that kid. This will be able to give us the confirmation that the kid got off the bus, where they got off the bus, and what time they got off the bus. So a huge safety measure here for our students and their families. Another thing, it will give us the opportunity to have a much more accurate accountability system for when we have our survey weeks. Survey weeks, for people who may be watching, is how we identify the number of ridership that we have each year. It's done in October and February. This will all be computer generated now on a report. However, previously and currently right now is use paper pencil, so there's obviously the opportunity for inaccuracies to occur. The next thing I want to point out to you is each student will be equipped with a breakaway lanyard. Going to this, a lot of people will have some concern about someone wearing something around their neck, but these lanyards that will come with the price of this product, we'll have enough lanyards there, and it is a breakaway type system. Then each school will also have their own printer where they will be able to print new ID cards if we have a new student that comes on campus and enrolls, or we have a student that changes schools, so they'll have a school-specific ID card, or, get ready for it, if they lose their card, because we are going to unfortunately have some kids that may lose their card and lanyard. And I'll just go ahead and preface this right now, and parents who are watching, staff who are watching, it is going to take a little bit of time. I'm gauging maybe a month to get all of our guys in step with wearing their ID card each and every day, but it will become habit, and you'll have a lot of the younger kids that will be very proud of that ID card also. Then here's the system that will read the card, and they'll be able to scan that. So multifunctionality, I haven't hit on that. These cards will also be able to be used for our food service. So this year, at the height of COVID and starting school, we wanted to reduce as much touch surface as possible. And in the past, you would have students that have to remember their 6-digit ID number. That was always a challenge for the younger guys starting school. So we introduced a swipe card system in our cafeterias, which is working now. The other use that we will have is in our media centers. There we go. And kids will be able to use this card also to swipe if they're checking out books and so forth. And then just a few moments ago, Mr. Meyer pointed out to me some proposed legislation that we anticipate will be signed by the governor. Any student in grades 6 through 12 who has a school-issued ID card, the card must have a crisis and suicide hotline number on it, or a text that they can reach out to if they need help. So it is truly multifunctional. Then the other item that goes hand in hand with this, and parents, you're going to love this, is the ability to track your child's school bus. a lot of times, I think about my own kids. They're running late trying to brush their teeth, and the bus is coming, and they may miss it because I didn't really know that it was right there outside my door. You can set your phone to the parent app for Z-Pass and Zonar that will allow you to set up a geofence anywhere from 50 meters to 500 meters that will ping when your child's bus is coming to pick them up or when they're getting dropped off at home. If you're a working parent and your child gets off the bus on their own, you can know that they should be at home because it'll set up once you set up your geofence. The proximity alerts occur every 10 seconds. So it is a repetitive, moving, live cast on that. Also, this will eliminate some of the, maybe annoying would be one way to put it sometimes, but repetitive phone calls home by transportation indicating that there may be a bus substitution or combined routes or your bus is late. You'll be able to have push notifications to come to your phone. So if approved, we would need to really have a grassroots effort to get parents to load this on their phone and keep track of their bus. The parent app is a multi-step process to assure authenticity, confidentiality, and we'll be able to it will be password protected, much like Focus is. So really excited about these two items. I think it's going to do wonders for our families and our students, and also will bring our transportation department a little more up to date with technology.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So I heard you say that they're going to get a ping as the bus is coming towards their stop, correct? So in other words, it's going to reduce the number of kids missing buses in the morning?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's helpful for a parent too, because as you're trying to get your child out of bed and trying to get your child breakfast and trying to get your child out the door, you can hear that dinging and as it's coming closer.
I can already see parents setting up dings automatically, even though the bus isn't coming, so.
I would say this is more for the parents than it is for the.
Well, it's for both, it's for both,
I
yes.
understand, but, Dr. Schiff?
Yeah, I want to add to this. I said it this afternoon, but I'll say it briefly again here. Well, the intention of this may initially have been about tracking kids, making sure we knew where kids were on buses and coordinating lunch lunch swipe cards and all of those things. What it really is, and you alluded to this, and I just want to highlight it, is this is about safety and security. And this has long been missing from our district. We have not had ID tags for students, so we know who's supposed to be on campuses where or when. And in the absence of a horrific incident, as some other districts have experienced, and thankfully we have not, nor will we ever, this helps us know who's supposed to be on our campuses, when they're supposed to be there, how we can identify them, where they are. In the context of safety and security, this could not be more important. So while it is an asset to being able to know where students are and helping parents track buses and be to the bus stop on time and all of those things, what it fundamentally does is gives us a way to know who should be on campuses when, where they should be, and to keep track of that should there ever be an incident. But even when there's not, we need to know where people under our charge are. So as a safety measure, this is so long overdue. I'm so delighted we're finally getting to it, and I can't wait to approve it.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Will this also give children the ability to have access to a door in the future? For example, if they're locked out, it's an emergency, they can get in? Or is that a different system?
I don't know how, I don't want to tell you something inaccurate. I don't know
Okay.
exactly how that would work. I mean, we did have a meeting when we brought media services, food service, IT, and transportation together, and we talked about the different functionalities that could be put on this card. From the
Because that
ones,
needs to be a
from what
different
I am
conversation.
seeing, the
Okay.
access readers that we have now, it would not be. But again, technology is always changing. It may be in the future.
Yeah, that would be a security conversation we would have to have, I think, when we have those meetings that we have, and we haven't had one since Dr. Moore's been on the team, but we used to have pretty commonly meetings with the sheriff and the police chiefs and talk about security. So I was just questioning that. Also, I remember getting my first ID when I was in 6th grade, and I was so excited that I had an ID, and then I was so disappointed that it did nothing for me. So it's nice that I think the kids will be excited about it, but it just sat in my wallet. As a matter of fact, I found it recently. So it's nice that kids will be actually, I think they'll embrace it. So I think it'll be great. Thank you.
Yes.
One of the things, I'm not sure, Mr. Bass, if you mentioned this, but the card is also beneficial for the students with regard to their media, checking out library books and returning library books. One of the questions that I asked earlier today was, would the app be able to allow parents to see their lunch balance? And it would be nice in one place for that feature. You mentioned that the app could be adjusted. Maybe that would be something that we could look into.
Yes, ma'am, we'll definitely look into that. That's a great idea to be able to
It's just easy to just have
see that.
everything in one place so parents don't have to, log into different systems. All in one, media, library card, lunch.
And
all of that.
and if I can, a shameless plug here, hopefully we have some parents that will watch this. USDA has approved for all meals to be at no charge for the 21-22 school year, similar like we're doing this year. So hopefully we won't have a need for a
Yeah.
real balance check.
But in the future.
But in the future, yes, ma'am.
Certainly in the future. The other great thing about having the IDs is that the students can use the card in certain stores, and like in Disney, they might be able to get a student discount if they show their student ID. And I know that there are, I think Barnes & Noble's also offers a small discount to students in some other locations, so that might be beneficial to the students. I cannot wait to approve this. This is so long overdue.
Having said that, why don't you make the motion?
It really will bring us to where we need to be. And yes, I will make the motion, board members, to approve the 2021-2022 CI Solutions Zonar Z-Pass agreement.
Second.
Dr. Schiff is a second. I'm not going to ask for more comment. I'm going to call the question. Is all in favor?
Aye. I do need to say something. Just so parents are clear, Mr. Bass, is it true that when students get off of the bus, there's no further tracking of a student? This ID and the pinging and all of that, the app it does not work after the students get off of the bus?
Yes, ma'am. All the tracking is solely based on the bus.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yay.
We now move to the action agenda, the regularly scheduled action agenda. And this item is, it's a public hearing for the adoption of revisions to the Code of Student Conduct Handbook effective 2021-22 school year. So, Dr. Moore, have you documented that this public hearing was properly advertised in accordance with state statutes?
I have.
All right. I'm now going to recess the meeting to conduct the public hearing as advertised. The public hearing is now in session. Dr. Moore, are there any written responses to the advertised public hearing to be read at this time?
No, they're not.
The public is invited to address this issue at this time. Is there any individual representing an organization or his or her own personal or public interest who wishes to speak? Well, hearing concludes. The announced public hearing on the adoption of revisions to the Code of Student Conduct has been conducted pursuant to notice, and that ample opportunity to address this issue has been provided to all. So I will convene the board meeting, or it's reconvened at this time. And
Do you need a motion?
we need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
May I make one
5-0.
comment on that? I
Sure.
know I don't want to go on and on, but a previous board meeting, I had brought up that in previous student code of conduct handbooks, there was a page that said parents' rights. And that had gotten changed to just parents' responsibilities. And I brought up the need for that to be put out there, especially with the bill that got passed that has not become law yet. And I talked to the superintendent about that, and I believe I brought up the item about having us have some sort of pamphlet or on our website or something so parents understand what their rights are. Also, we can add on their vocabulary section for acronyms that are for education. I think that's important. I used to do that in the meeting room that I had IEPs with for parents, because we throw those around thinking that parents understand all those acronyms. So I've asked the superintendent if we could maybe add that to our June meeting. Then we're gonna, I believe, June 22nd. So we can bring that item up. But the reason I'm bringing it here is because that was something that I thought should be included in student code of conduct. The more we talked about it, I realized that probably needs to be a separate document for parents, because when they go to student code of conduct, they're usually going there for two reasons. One, at the beginning of the year, a lot of parents do read through it. Two, their child got in trouble, so they need to go look at the code of conduct. But I don't think a parent would necessarily go there for their rights as a parent. So I agree with you. I think that needs to be a separate document. So thank you, and I'm glad we approved this tonight.
I just
Yes.
want to thank all the members of this committee for all of their hard work. I observed this committee, I think it was 2 years ago, and at that time, there was a alignment that I thought was really appropriate for elementary schools and middle and high schools. And I know it's a lot of work. I know the principals use it on a regular basis, and anything like this will always have issues, but I really think it was a job well done for all of this information. Thank you.
Okay, moving right along, the next agenda item is the superintendent's report.
No report tonight, but I do want to tease our next board workshop. We will be bringing over 30 new initiatives that we'll be implementing within our school system. So we're going to be rolling out, we're going to invite as much media as possible to communicate the innovative new programming initiatives that we'll be rolling out into the new school year. An opportunity to hear from each cabinet member regarding those initiatives, how they're aligned to our strategic plan. It will be a day of celebration, a day of acknowledging the innovation and new programs that are in place to drastically re-envision our school system to ensure that we are world-class. And world-class is hard, world-class is difficult, and it's not easy. But ultimately, when we're willing to dig in and have difficult conversations, we can create new, bold initiatives which will be rolling out to ensure that we are that school system each and every single child in this community deserves. So looking forward to that presentation.
Can I ask you a question about that? Our next board meeting is Tuesday, June 8th. And didn't we move the board discussion to be a master board training that day? Didn't we change that around?
It's in the
So are
morning.
you referring to the one that follows June 8th?
Yes.
Okay, just to clarify, because I don't want to miss that, but
Yes.
okay.
All right. There was nothing held for discussion, so we move to board member matters. So, Mrs. Rosario, you may
I would
begin.
love to, thank you. Wabasso School Special Olympics was so much fun. I went last Friday, and it was just wonderful. And district staff, it was hilarious to see district staff play baseball against the students there. And of course, the students won, so it was wonderful. Fun, exciting, the kids had a great time. The ACE Awards, the Alternative Center for Education Awards ceremony occurred right after Wabasso Special Olympics. That was also an incredible ceremony with great recognition. The academic signing, of course, that we had and we've discussed at our last board meeting was equally as wonderful. I went to Pelican Island Elementary School, their senior walk, and unfortunately, no students showed up. But the kids were all outside, and the
the administrators used that opportunity, because the kids had signs, to videotape the kids saying special messages, giving special messages to the seniors anyway. So it was a great opportunity for them. And what was interesting is the assistant principal told me that happened to be the very first time that they had everybody together, under the awning outside. So it was the beginning of new things to come, coming out of COVID, I mean. Charter high school graduation, and of course Vero Beach. Oh, charter high school graduation I went to at Vero Beach Citrus Bowl. I'm kind of reading my notes. That was a wonderful graduation as well. I want to give a shout out to Charter High School. Their graduation was just as most high school graduations would be. It was organized, and it was lovely to see everyone there that I did see. Of course, our Sebastian River High School graduation and our Vero Beach graduation, lovely, wonderful, hot, but fantastic. Everybody looked wonderful. What I found interesting in my observations was Sebastian River High School students, I didn't see any decorations on their hats, which was so interesting. Everyone just seemed traditional. And then I went to Vero Beach, and there were, flowers and just beautiful decorations. It was just an interesting observation. So that was fun. And of course, I didn't participate. I came to see our STEAM designation showcase last Thursday, which was incredible. The presentations of the schools, I wasn't here all day, but I was here for a little bit, and the presentations of the schools really vying for the position of the title of being a designated STEAM school. Almost seemed like they were competing against each other, but they really had an opportunity to, using the same word, to showcase what their intentions are. So that was wonderful. It's a lot of things going on. But the next, looking forward, the next opportunity that I am excited about is going to the FSBA at the beginning of June, and our superintendent is going to present there, so I'm excited to support him and our district at the FSBA conference, and that is all I have.
Dr. Jones.
I attended the Wabasso graduation. It was absolutely wonderful, and as Ms. Rosario said, Sebastian River High School and Vero Beach High School were wonderful. There are about 100 moving parts to make a graduation work, and kudos to the principals and the staff. I was on the Zoom meeting with our Scholarship Foundation with Camilla Wainwright. We had many recipients there, and I was very, very proud of all of our students. I'm very much looking forward to the summer school programs because, as Dr. Moore said, we've got some work to do, especially in math, but I see real innovation here, and I'm looking forward to that. I attended the last African American Student Council meeting at Vero Beach High School. It was excellent. They were electing their new officers. They were following Robert's rules. They were collaborative, and kudos to Mr. Adams and Mr. Morgan for their support. I'm very excited the board talked about our unitary sustainability policy, working with the NAACP and other members, and I just think there's nowhere to go but up with that, because once we put it in policy, we are going to do it. I saw the STEAM conference. I got to see Rosewood, Vero Beach High School, and Dodgertown present. Absolutely outstanding, and so very proud of them. And I just want again to thank all of our support staff members, our teachers, our administrators, our district staff for a very challenging year with COVID. And I think we've done a great job, and we're moving forward, hopefully to somewhat of a normal year in the fall. But I just want you to know that I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Berenberg?
Sure. I too attended Indian River Charter High School's graduation, which was nice that they had it outside this year. One thing that was kind of interesting, they have a lot fewer graduates than we experienced at the two high school graduations, but they were able to talk about what every single student was going to be doing next year, which I thought was interesting. Whether or not we have time to do that with ours, I don't think so, but it would be nice to see that in the programs. So I'm going to say that publicly because I already had that conversation with Dr. Moore. But I did appreciate that dashboard we got on that. So that was kind of nice. That was new. I also attended Indian River State College's Trio Upward Bound graduation. And I have attended that in the past as well. This year they had, it seemed like more kids. But just so if anyone doesn't know what that program is, it's basically a program for kids to help them graduate, not only graduate high school and try to know what to prepare for and do all the paperwork and everything for college. And those are kids that are either from a family that has financial struggles or first time to go to college in their family. So that would have been a great program for both of my parents, who were the first ones to go to college in their families and graduate from high school. But they didn't have those sort of programs back then. And it's nice that they have that support there. Wabasso School graduation was awesome. It was short and sweet because they only had 4 graduates, but it was so wonderful. It was so sweet. And I got to be the guest speaker at Rosewood's graduation, and this is the second time I got to be the guest speaker. Last year I went and I showed up and just sat in the front row, and then the speaker didn't show up. So I got to do something off the cuff last year. This year, I forgot my speech at home, and so I got to do it off the cuff again this year, which was a lot of fun. Citrus Awards today were really, really special. It was nice because of the way they did it and the way that the kids really rally for each other. And I saw that at lots of schools, but it was really evident there. And then the Ace Eagles Award, shout out, and here's where I wanted to say this, but Mr. Hart organized a lot of that. And he just saw to every little detail, and I think that what he did in contacting all of those dignitaries that he brought that day to show kids, you know, that this community cares about you and your success, I think he's going to bring that to his new position, so I'm excited about that. And then I also attended Sebastian River High School's awards night, which was a little long, but because it ran into the time capsule. They had a lot of kids getting awards, what can I say? But they ran into the time capsule time. So when we walked out, there was all these people from, 25 years ago. They look a little different, but they graduated 25 years ago, and they were excited to see what was in the time capsule that really smelled. So think about it. Those things were in there for 25 years. So it was interesting. And then something that I did also, of course, attend the STEAM showcase because, I had to attend that. And that was encouraging. I think we still have more work to do on the STEAM designation, but I was encouraged by what I saw. And then the retirement dinner. Nobody's mentioned that one. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so the retirement dinner was nice. I don't think we've ever done that before. Have we?
No.
No? Yes? No?
No.
Okay. I thought I saw a head nod over there, Nancy, no? Because I have several friends now that were retiring because, I'm that age. We're retiring, except for me. And they were so touched that they had that opportunity. We might want to rethink the plaque thing, only because when you're retired, you really don't put a plaque up on your wall. It was a great sentiment, though, to do something like that. And I think that's all I have, so thank you. And it's just nice to attend all these things. This is the part of being a school board member that's a lot of fun. Your hands hurt a lot this month from clapping so much, but it's neat to be able to celebrate children.
Dr. Schiff.
I don't have a whole lot to add that hasn't already been said. The graduations were terrific. Big shout out, congratulations to the class of 2021. You did it. Retirement dinner was great. I've missed a lot of the events because of other obligations. I haven't been able to as many. I'm looking forward next week is the end of the year luncheon for the principals and the APs. We're doing something really different now this year, and I think that more than we've done in a long time, but certainly since I've been on the board, we're celebrating people a lot more. We're doing retirement dinners, and we're doing teacher accolade. We're just doing a lot more celebrating. And to Dr. Moore, who's encouraging that, to everybody who's putting that together, it makes it more joyous and has us be more aware of the contributions of everybody in this district. So I'm grateful for that. Don't have a lot else, I don't think, actually. Not, short and sweet.
Okay, well, I'll finish this up. Sort of echoing the alternative school graduation, I thought it was particularly nice that Senator Mayfield and Representative Grawl were there. Each made remarks, lots of awards given for various accomplishments from the kids that were graduating, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, 2 of the graduates were also graduating from Vero Beach High School, as opposed to going back to their home school, so that was great. And the other Metropolitan Planning Organization meeting is an interesting meeting. A lot of conversation about the roundabout at 510 and 66th. But what was interesting and was expressed is they widened 510, going west from 58th Street. You go through parts of Wabasso. And what, not that I drive around the streets in Wabasso, but what was pointed out is a lot of those streets are dead end. And the concern is that when they widen that stretch, you're going to have 4 lanes instead of 2. And the difficulty, many of the streets, there's no direct access onto 510. You have to zigzag your way out. And the fear is that you're going to have a difficult time getting into Track Week, particularly if there's a hurricane or a storm and it's a exit route headed west. So I think that's not a FDOT responsibility, that's the county responsibility, so there's going to be a fair amount of conversation. I don't know what the school buses do when they go in and around that particular community, but it seems that these streets were built sort of haphazardly. It wasn't exactly well-planned. So I think they got the representatives who were very articulate and very professional in voicing their concern, really taking it as an opportunity to maybe address what has been a long-standing problem that's likely to get worse once this 510 widening takes place out a couple of years from now. And that's really it. So unless, actually law enforcement left, I was going to thank them for their being here.
Hopefully they haven't left.
They haven't left.
They're in the other room, or they're having a nightcap. If not, they probably deserve one. At any rate, thank you all, and meeting is adjourned at 9:34.